two
They
tough
made it
teams.
that far.
Yeah, yeah,
And did he play for the Riverjacks?
yeah. Yep, and they played great. Both teams played great. It was a good day. But he's excited about cross country.
Oh, is he gonna run cross country?
You know, I kept telling him
I know
he'd
he
be.
ran the Folk Fest.
I said, well, why didn't you call me?
It's awful.
They said, we did. I said, well, I don't have any record of it on either phone.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah,
I had to watch the last one on this. I can hear everyone, but you're very, very hard to hear.
That's why he's sitting in the middle now.
but my wife's got me trained.
I had COVID, and I was sitting in a hotel room watching the ocean, trying to, and I was like, Tom, look up for me. But of course, I couldn't tell you that,
Well, you should be able to hear it tonight.
because I don't think I'll be here for your next meeting. And I screwed up and said, Jason seconded the motion when Cody seconded it, because I thought that's whose voice I heard.
Wait, you had a problem between me and Cody?
I did. You know how I rarely look at
That mic's a lot different from my voice to his voice.
We might need to fix the audio there, Cody,
We
buddy.
might.
Can you teach me to sing?
And they must not have proofread one of my stories, because I said something seconded the moon. Glad you seconded the moon.
Well,
We
you know,
kinda need
it's,
the moon.
yeah, I try to look out for everybody, you know.
I think I'll be at the beach again the next time y'all meet, so.
Okay, which beach?
North Mountain.
Nice, nice.
Hopefully this time I won't have COVID and be sent to a hotel by myself.
Tell you, that ruins a good vacation. It does. Isn't that right?
You know, I got back
It
for 2
does.
days, and then once I said I feel fine, my niece said, okay, you can come and hang out with us on the beach, and so that's what I did, but she wouldn't let me stay with them, I had to stay
Right.
with them.
There it
Right,
is.
right.
Question answered.
Jerry, have caught me out there in the parking lot, so.
Well, Brett's here, I guess we can call this meeting to order.
That's right on time.
And would you all stand and I'll ask Cody to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any delegations? I got one name here, but I can't tell what it is.
That's my territory.
Okay. Did you want to speak now, or was it for your kid's presentation?
Yeah, I'll speak now.
Okay.
I'm here again as Faculty Senate President representing our faculty, some of who are also here this evening. We noticed that an item of assistant principal was added to the agenda again. We wanted to reaffirm our support for hiring an assistant principal at our school. Last time I spoke, I listed many reasons as to the need of an assistant principal at Gilmer County High School. We want to remind everyone of many of those needs ranging from student safety and support to faculty support. We also would like to remind everyone how busy administrators are throughout the school day with 2 of them, and how availability would be cut in half with just 1 administrator. In closing, to our knowledge, Mr. Nathan Haynes has gone through the appropriate steps to apply, be interviewed, and has a recommendation of the hiring committee and our superintendent for the job. We as faculty support this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there anyone else in delegations? Okay, then we'll move on to the agenda. The minutes of June the 23rd meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to not approve the minutes as, I don't believe they were reported correctly on my motion to fill the assistant principal position. I ask that we listen to the recording and recheck that.
We don't have a recording for the 23rd.
Well, I can reference this email that you sent, Mr. Boothby the day after that meeting, where you put, last night at a special meeting on personnel, they voted to postpone the filling of the assistant principal at Gilmer County High School until the new board is seated. So you wrote that the day after.
We can amend the agenda, the minutes.
That's my recommendation, that we amend this agenda to reflect that.
We can amend it.
Would that be okay?
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve it with the amendments?
I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Nay.
4-1.
Yep, nay.
Okay, then we'll go on to the next 27th agenda.
I move to approve these minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second, the minutes of 27th be approved. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried, 5-0. Then now on to the meeting of the 30th, which was a special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the?
I need clarification
Okay.
on that. Our email that was sent out on the 29th said that this was an emergency meeting. It says at the top of this, it was a special meeting. It has to be, the agenda has to be posted 2 days in advance to be a special meeting. Did that occur with this?
It was posted Thursday, when we posted Tuesday. I'd have to look, and tell you exactly.
It's the title of the email we received on the 29th was emergency meeting for 6/30/22.
Day before.
So it didn't fall under the special meeting
So we can
guidelines.
amend that and say emergency.
Except technically, you probably can't have an emergency meeting for finance.
I move that we accept the minutes.
As an emergency or as
As presented.
as presented?
What is that?
I move that we amend the minutes to correctly classify it as an emergency meeting. And we follow up with the State Ethics Commission on proper use of an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
We have two motions.
As you-
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought no one seconded his.
We're-
I'm just trying to get understanding here.
We're just discussing this meeting. Jason made a motion to accept it as is, and Hillary's saying it needs to be made a emergency meeting because it doesn't meet the criteria for a special meeting, because the timeline doesn't make it right because it was of the agenda. You have
So
to
you're
have
just
to-
making a motion the same, but just to fix the title of the meeting?
Well,
Yeah.
it is technically an emergency meeting, not a special meeting. You
Well,
have
and I
to-
understand, so can we just not make a motion to,
That's what I just did.
Approve it as a special meeting. She-
Or it's an
then she-
emergency meeting.
Yeah, but his motion's on the floor, and that nobody seconded it, and if nobody seconds it, it dies from lack of second. And now, his motion died from lack of second, so if you wanna go ahead and make a motion.
I make a motion that we amend the Thursday, June 30th meeting to an emergency meeting, since that's how it was presented to the board members, and it doesn't meet the requirements for a special meeting.
Okay, second? Did you second that? Did you second?
no, I'm staying, I wasn't at the meeting, I'm staying out of this.
Oh, okay. I will second that, to do an emergency meeting. And, any discussion other than that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, all against?
Nay.
Opposed, nay.
2 nays and 2 ayes.
I'd like to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
I'd like to hear both sides why you're a nay and why you're wanting to do this. I mean, I understand why I wanted to just fix the title of the meeting because the state.
Okay, the meeting's already, I'll tell you what my thoughts are. The meeting's already occurred, that can't be changed.
Right.
It's, has to be a meeting of some kind, and it meets the criteria of an emergency meeting more than it does a regular meeting, but emergency meetings really are to be an emergency, a matter of life and death, health, or a bomb threat or something like that. The regular meeting, special meetings called, it has to be made 2 days in advance with an agenda.
Right.
and this was not 2 days in advance with an agenda.
Okay.
So that's why I would go ahead and approve it as an emergency meeting, because we needed to get that, we at least thought we needed to get that done before the end of the year. So that's where we're at.
You can go to the Ethics Commission website, and it defines the meetings on the website.
Where are you staying at?
A regular is 3, specials 2, and emergency is 9.
It was my understanding that a part of that motion was we bring this up with the attorneys and the Ethics Commission. And every time we communicate with them, that does cost us money. And somebody in the administration, somewhere down the school year, might want to blow their nose, and we have to contact the attorneys about it. So we might want to back off right now. Let's not blow our wad right at the beginning.
Okay.
Mr. President, but you cannot call an emergency meeting for finance. Is that correct or
agree.
not correct?
It is
Well,
correct.
there's gotta be other circumstances, not just the finance. If it was,
It doesn't meet the requirements for either, so I don't know what we do.
But I will say, there was a report due July 1, and there were circumstances beyond anybody's control that it didn't take place until then. And, you know, we can't control sickness and health, and it had to be into the state by July 1, had to be, or it was gonna be an audit finding that would have been addressed by the new board. So that is the justification for calling that meeting.
Okay.
So
then,
it wouldn't be a finding on our,
then it would be, then I don't see any problem with having it as an emergency meeting. It's not a regular meeting, because it wasn't an agenda. But if it was an emergency meeting,
Are we going to attach the communication with the attorneys and the Ethics Commission to it, to that motion?
Dr. Bart, the attorneys are already aware of this.
Okay.
And their advice was to have training on the different types of meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
And the open meeting law.
So that's done.
That's
So all
done.
we're really
That's all right.
voting on now is just change the title.
that's right.
Okay, then I'll back that up. I was of the understanding that
He
there was an
seconds all.
attachment there.
So the motion is to have this considered as a emergency meeting, right?
And amend
That's the best we can do at this
amend
point.
the agenda.
And amend the agenda
Amend
to
the
make that
agenda.
an emergency meeting.
You'll
Is that still
second
on the
that.
floor?
Yeah.
Is that still on the board? Yeah, okay.
The minutes, I'm sorry. It's-
Okay, who made the motion? Hillary made the motion, who
You
seconded?
seconded it,
You
Yes.
seconded it.
all right.
Well, I thought Cody did, but that's all right.
Who seconded it? Tom.
I did.
Yeah.
And we're gonna vote on it now. There's no more discussion.
No more
All in
discussion.
favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carried. But I just wanna make a statement about these meetings. It's real important, and like I said in the last, and Patty was talking a little bit about their training. I've gone to training twice in these meetings, and both of them have really emphasized the importance of your meetings and making sure that if you have a meeting, that it's for what it's called for, like an emergency meeting cannot be just because you wanna do a financial report or pay a bill or whatever. It has to be a real dire situation.
Like
Generally, flood, health, or something like that.
Mr. Minnie, can you clarify the vote?
It was,
I
you
think
want,
Cody
you wanna go?
abstained.
I abstain.
Okay,
I missed that.
That is, okay,
Thanks.
so four,
4 votes yes, and 1 abstention.
okay.
And Cody was the abstention. Did you get that, Myra?
Got it.
Okay, but the meetings are, and the reason that this has been discussed now of that is because of the emphasis that the state has put on training of the boards in having these meetings. You can't just change on a whim and do whatever you want to. It has to be done properly and the proper kind of meeting. So hopefully, from now on, when we have a meeting, we'll know whether it's a regular meeting, emergency meeting, or a special meeting, or a statutory meeting. So, those are the reasons you have it. Okay, so that takes care of all the minutes.
July 5th,
July
Oh, July 5th, yeah, that's the first one, the new board. Has everybody looked at that one? Have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Any-
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 5-0. And be sure, if I, like you did, Cody, speak up if you want to abstain, and make sure we understand that you do. Because sometimes that gets overlooked. Next on our agenda, we have the schedule of checks.
I guess this would be a report for June, June into July. Schedule of checks to be written. Were there any questions? Do you wanna do all this at once? Do you wanna take them individually? How would you like to do that?
As far as I'm concerned, Clay, I went through all these at home, and you can do them all at once for me, but I don't know if anyone else.
I'm in each report category.
Okay,
Do them individually, or
do them all together as far as I'm concerned.
were there any questions with the schedule of checks to be written? Are there any questions with the monthly financial report? Okay. There was, pretty good documentation given for the purchases over 5,000. Those are both kind of IT type, licensure for the school year, that you'll see each and every year, you're on the board, so it's nothing out of the norm or out of the ordinary. Is there any questions with those purchases?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
Been moved in second that we approve the treasurer's report. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now we're getting into the good stuff. Recognition of the staff.
I
And-
have one of the staff, 'cause
Okay,
she may lead on this before we get down there.
all right.
I'd like Ms. Tanya Stewart to please stand. She is a top 10 finalist for the West Virginia Teacher of the Year, and I've been sitting on this for a month. I've been dying to tell somebody, but I couldn't, so congratulations, Tanya. We're very, very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I'm honored. Yes.
That's a lot of work and a great achievement. So, now we have, Mr. Cox, do you have a team here that you wanna?
Yep. You guys will go stand up there. Mr. Putnam's got some pretty cool questions for you.
Right on the wall, or?
Yeah,
Keep scooting down for the TV, that way we
So
can
they
get all
can
of you on
see
there.
you.
Mr. Cox, why don't you start by telling what these individuals and team has
All right,
accomplished?
now we got.
All right, so these guys are the state champion parliamentary procedure team. That is going on to nationals in October to compete. So it's a pretty special team because they just barely lost it last year, and 5 of them are graduates. And they decided to work at it and come back at it again, and the amount of time they put into it is crazy. They spent 3 weeks of practicing from 6 AM to 7:30, because that was the only time they could all 6 meet to have a practice. And not to mention the fact that every weekend at least once, and for 4 straight days around the 4th of July, they practiced on their own, studying questions and tests. So the amount of work that has went into this is literally the result of 4 years of a parliamentary procedure team that have rotated in and out, and these kids finally got it done. I think there's only 5 different ag teachers right now that have won this contest that are still teaching in West Virginia.
would you describe some of their individual awards and some of the offices they've been elected to?
Maya is an interesting story because last year when they lost, I told her that she was gonna preside this year.
May
I
I
don't-
interject that it was my fault that we lost? I lost it for our entire team. We had practiced all summer. You don't have to say it, Mr. Cox, I will.
Too hard on
It was
yourself.
the worst, like, so we have required motions and I was a debater. And I took Katie's required motion, which is a 50-point deficit, like, it knocks you down 50 points. So,
It's
I
okay.
was, yeah. But now I'm for it, and it makes it that much better, so, you know.
So I told her, I said, you're gonna be presider, and I don't think she liked that. And I said, you know, I think you have the most motivation to work hard, because we lost Shayla Bourne last year. I said, I think you have the most motivation to learn hard, because she has to run the meeting. If a member messes up, she's the presider. She has to tell them they're out of order and fix it. Everything runs through her. And so this year, they brought in a special judge to judge only the presiders. And it's the first time in state history they've done this, and she was the winning presider for the state conference. Oh, yeah. Katie,
yeah.
well, I didn't know where else you were going with this.
Do you think, Mr. Cox?
Katie, why don't you tell them about what you and Mackenzie did?
So, a few months ago, me and Mackenzie both applied to be state officers for FFA, and only 2 people from the school are allowed to run, and usually only 2 people from the region even win, or allowed to win. But this year, there was 4 people from our region, and we are the central region. And so me and Mackenzie both applied, knowing that it might not both happen for both of us. And so the week of state convention, when we also competed in parliamentary procedure, me and Mackenzie spent all of our free time interviewing, doing speeches. We went through 2 personal interviews, 2 different speeches, as well as 2 different facilitation workshops. So we did all of that, and then everyone voted, and my best friends came in clutch for us in our business session because they all stood up and said how good we are and how we needed to be elected. And so we were appointed, I was appointed as the Central Region Vice President, and Mackenzie was appointed as the State Secretary, and we were both elected, and so now we're both serving on the officer team this year.
So I'd like to say that when you walk into our school and you turn left as you're going towards the library area, there's a trophy case there. And the top shelf of that trophy case, Mr. Cox has filled up with those that have attended a national competition. And there's pictures on plaques. I cleared out right below that. And I will tell you the things I cleared out. But there's some things that are in there that was 10, 12 years old, 2nd and 3rd place stuff, and I've cleaned out a bunch of plaques. And I've got this big open space, probably about that wide, just for you guys when you go to national. So I wanted to put a national plaque for you guys to picture it. If not, I'll take the state. I'll take the state championship.
No
We'll put a
stress.
plaque there. But when you go in our school and you see our trophy case, know that that's your spot, okay? So congratulations.
Something kind of interesting that I could have mentioned earlier is, this competition, when I was an FFA member, I was on a team that won. And it's very rare to win this. And so when I got this job, I'm looking through things in storage, and there's a picture of Everett Mason with the state winning parliamentary procedure team from Normantown. Okay? And I know like Basil Drennan was on it, one of the Spunogles were probably on it. And it's hung in my office ever since. And I was talking to Mr. Bennett yesterday, and there was like 3 or 4 years in a row where teams from Gilmer County won this contest in the 60s. And it hasn't happened again until now.
It's impressive.
Nice. That's
So I have some
awesome.
questions for you. Mr. Cox helped me formulate some questions I'm honored that he allowed me to ask you. What made you guys, and all of you, any of you, who would like the answers, what made you want to be on the parliamentary procedure team?
Oh, can I go first?
Sure, go for it.
Adam?
So junior year came around. I said FFA was stupid. I wasn't ever going to join FFA. It was not going to happen. It's not for me. We had a debate project in our college English class. And I wanted to kick Mackenzie White's butt. So, Mr. Cox came up to me and he was asking what we were talking about, and we told him. And he was like, "You think you're pretty good? You think you're gonna kick her butt?" I was like, "Well, yeah." I was like, "Duh." And then he said, "That's your fifth person." So Mackenzie asked me to be on the parliamentary procedure team out of nonsense. So,
Great.
And did you beat her?
I think I did. She's a good show about it.
We're lucky she's not here right now.
This is being recorded. Anyone else want to tell why you wanted to be on the team?
Well, it was my freshman year, and I had just started taking an ag class, and Mackenzie was like, "Hey, Maya, do you want to try this competition?" And I was like, "I don't know, that doesn't really seem like my thing. Like, I wasn't really involved in FFA yet." She was like, "Oh, just come to one practice, it'll be fun." And I get there, and I remember being so nervous, and the first thing he had us do was pick something out of a basket. You had to talk about it for 1 minute, and I was awful at it, and I was like, "I'm never gonna be able to do this." And then practices kept going, and I loved the people that were on my team, and they made practice fun. It was just something that I was good at.
What did you pick out of the basket?
I think it was cows.
And what did you say about it? Let's hear it now.
No, it's I did not grow up around cows.
I think I can speak for all of us when I say that none of us really wanted to be on the Parlor Pro team. We got conned into it by other friends, by Shayla, Mackenzie, Amaya and Mackenzie got me into it. I drugged them too into it, but after that, like, it was all we wanted to do. It wasn't something that we woke up and we were like, "Oh, this is what we want to do." It was something that we took a chance on and we did, and now our work has paid off, and so hopefully it continues to pay off.
Certainly has.
Nice.
Next question.
Next question. All right. I'll direct this one to James since he had answered the last couple of things. After getting second place last year, okay, we don't want to dwell on that too much. Now we are state champions. What was it like for you to go back this year and come away with the state championship?
Good. I mean, obviously it was a tough go for us last year. I mean, you talk about putting a lot of time into something, spending every day, you know, sacrificing so many hours and doing so much, and it was a hard loss, but, I mean, it didn't hurt us. I mean, we were okay, and it wasn't a big deal, and Maya is way harder on herself than I think any of the rest of us want to be, because that kind of stuff happens, and it could happen to anybody. I just think that we're very fortunate to have the willpower and the desire to bring it back again and finish what we started last year.
Good job. What do you think of your presider now?
I can't tell you while she's in.
So, your question has two parts. First, what was it like moving from a debate member to being the presider this year? And then secondly, you won the first ever presider award. How's that make you feel?
Okay, well, I'll answer the first part first. It was definitely a large change. I never realized how much work a presider had to do. She ran the meeting, every little catch. If there's anything wrong, you have to identify it and you have to pick it out. So you better know, you better be best friends with Robert because you're gonna need to know everything. And it was really hard. The first few practices were just getting back into it, and I was like, "Mr. Cox, I can't make you any promises because I don't think I can do this." But then it became my goal and my mission that I will be the best presider at the state competition. They're not gonna give me a question that I do not know because I will know it because I'm not doing the same thing that I did last year.
I would just like to add that there's 85 chairman oral questions, and Maya had at least 70 memorized because she was not going to mess up this year, and she definitely pushed herself harder than any of us did this year, for sure.
And then what was the second part?
The second part was, now that you won the first ever award, what's that mean to you? It's the first one ever.
It's crazy. All of the time that I sacrifice from my friends or just putting work in to, spend time with my family. I would lock myself in my bedroom and say, if I don't finish 15 questions by tonight, then I'm staying up all night until I get them done. So I think it's just very rewarding, and it feels like I've made some type of history.
She set the bar high, to say the least.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for anybody in the group. Who's answered the least questions so far? Maybe we should pin this on Adam. Mr. Cox has a whiteboard with some quotes on them in his classroom, okay? Can you talk about a few of them? Can you remember what they are? And talk about what they
This
said.
is somebody who wrote the quotes I was gonna say. Not me.
I'll tell you what they say.
Okay, Jay.
One of them says, do not take someone else's motion. One of them says, I don't know exactly what day we're up to now, but at the time it said 0 days without an accident. And then we have the whole blackboard on the one wall that's as long as this wall, and it's filled up with debate topics. Who, what, when, where, why, how, more that I don't remember. And, I mean, we just get together at the end of practices and we brainstorm and we write down ideas and topics that we can talk about using our debates, local things that make us stronger speakers.
I noticed that when you guys presented to the faculty and administration team, that you used things that were local. I mean, exactly what you're talking about. Like, those are great ideas, but you were ready for those. Days without an accident of.
Like stealing someone's motion, or maybe an inhumane debate, or.
I was looking for missing fingers.
It's
All right.
almost got there in practice.
You forgot about the Walt Disney quote.
Why still
Good things
forget?
come to those who work for it, better things come to those who go out and get it.
We have a cookie cake.
The last question's Katie's. Tell us about the election process to be elected as a state officer, which you did a little bit. And what does that do for you as a student, moving forward in your life? That experience, what's it do and what's it mean to you?
Well, I would have never ran for office if I hadn't competed in parliamentary procedure because I'm not a speaker. I don't like to be up in front of people, and that's pretty much what state office is. So by doing Parley Pro, I got a lot better at that, and I also worked on it, worked on speaking and stuff for weeks up until that. And so as a state officer, I wanted to be a state officer because I was counting on Mackenzie to get elected as one of those 2 top positions because I wanted to represent Gilmer County and I wanted to represent our region. And so now that I'm a state officer, I'm going to get to visit different schools in our region and maybe help get new chapters started or new middle school chapters started, just stuff like that. We've been throwing ideas about that. And I just think it's really important because like Shayla last year, I looked up a lot to her, and Zane, I looked up a lot to him, and Zane was the first officer elected in the last 20 years. Like it had been 20 years. And so I just wanted to keep that going. And even though I had a lot of doubts about it, like I was counting on Mackenzie. I was like, Mackenzie, you gotta get one of those top 2 spots, girl. So she did, but I just think it's really important for us to have representation from Gilmer County because Mackenzie won't specifically get to be to our region. She will cover the whole state, but I will still get to be here specifically for this region. And we work really well together, and I just think that with both of us together, we can just keep making history and keep changing things for the better.
Well, I'd like to say congratulations. You have an excellent advisor. Congratulations, Mr. Cox.
Outstanding
These fine young men and
Yes.
women under your direction. Thank you for bringing pride to Gilmer County High School. Thank you.
Shelley, tell me that you're warm. I was gonna say, because I'm about to melt.
Self-tropic over there.
She even has a sweater on.
I'm waiting, I can't wait.
Okay, Tyson, you're up, I guess.
Good evening. Just a few summer updates for you guys. I wanted to update on facilities and the preparation of facilities for schools. At this moment, upstairs hallways, all the classrooms upstairs, stairwells, and 5 classrooms downstairs, and also about a quarter of the stairwell, the hallway and on the bottom floor are waxed and ready to go. And if you've ever seen a freshly waxed school, it's beautiful. It just looks great. Our custodians are working very hard. We're a little ahead of schedule, or right on schedule, to get ready for the opening of school, so I want to give them a big pat on the back and a thank you because they have really been getting after it. They take it very personally, you know, the work that they do. And so I'm really happy about that. Talked a bit about the Wildcat statue, and that's been a project that's been ongoing. For the new board members that may not be aware, about a year ago, I came, and I don't remember exactly when the date was, but it was close to about a year ago, I came before the board and asked to spend, it was more than $5,000, closer to $10,000, and to put this statue of a wildcat in front of Gilmer County Elementary School. And so we got started with that, and then for months at Port, this statue was stuck. It was there, and I was assured that it would arrive eventually. And then winter comes and poor weather, and then, you know, eventually you get better weather, so you get with the contractor, and you get the updated price list, because what you got 6 months ago is no longer current. Price of materials has gone up. Long story short, if you swing by Gilmer County Elementary School, there's a base for a statue, and it's beautiful. It's done by Little Canal Construction, and we aim to have that thing done within, I would say, about a week and a half. They're gonna stain the top cap of it, but I'm telling you, these guys are craftsmen, they do excellent work. So I will let you guys know, I'll have pictures coming to you when it's done, but this has been something that we've involved our Wildcat PAC, which is our Student Advisory Council, Faculty Senate, our PTO has chipped in on the cost of it. Also LSIC, I brought that before our LSIC in the past, so it's just been, and the support of the board with that as well. So we're really proud of it, we think our kids are absolutely gonna love it. And so I just wanted to give you guys an update that hopefully, you know, the next time I come before you guys, I'm handing you guys pictures if you haven't seen it in person yet. I had on here just an update, and I looked at the agenda and I noticed that you guys have discussion on handbooks. So I'm sure that if anything comes up, you know, Gilmer County Elementary School related with the handbook, you can always send me a message or swing by the school or have that discussion here in a little bit. And also, just as a reminder, you know, there's going to be a different format for grades 2 through 5 with instruction and scheduling and homeroom classes for the next year. And that schedule is, the master schedule as it is done. The special ed schedule is about 95% done, I'll call it. Just a couple of things to tweak out there and fix that, but I think it's just about done. So what I would like to do, if you guys have any questions about any of that, I'd be glad to answer it.
I don't remember what you said before. Are the teachers moving classrooms or are the kids moving classrooms?
Good question. The students will move classrooms. And we are trying to plan every single detail about that at this point in time. And, you know, just what we're taking, what we're not taking, where do they keep it when they don't, and times and transitions right now. And I've met, we've had a lot of discussion about that. We've been offered, Mrs. Mason sent us an email and said that we could offer a day of professional development for before the 200-day contract starts. So we went with August 10th. We thought teachers might be a little bit more willing to come in just that day early, especially being able to work the 11th in lieu of through the Safe Schools website. So that morning is devoted to every detail about departmentalization, and we will go over that. And just keep it in the back of our mind that we're gonna have bumps in the road, we're gonna have a hiccup here and there, and that's expected, so we're just gonna work it out, be patient with one another. Just knowing, I think this, and we all have agreed, or, you know, I think we've all agreed, it's the best thing for kids. It's gonna be best for kids. But with that said, you guys have any questions for me?
I just want to make a comment. I reviewed the elementary school handbook, and the format and the content, you know, very, very well presented. So, you know, for your staff that works on that, you know, just make sure that, you know, relay the compliment that, you know, very nice job.
Appreciate that.
I agree with that. Concise and straightforward.
Yeah. Try to trim the crust off of it a little bit, you know, not make it more than is manageable. It's a large document, but thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Tyson. Next, Mr. Putnam.
So I have quite a few updates. We're still 20 minutes early. Normal time. See Ms. Mason and Mr. Frazier's going to follow, so try not to take too long. One thing we've worked on a little bit through the summer, when I say we, it has been a very small group of people that's worked on this, given that Mr. Payne has moved into the central office. It's our West Virginia School Crisis and Emergency Plan. And we worked on that and submitted that to Mr. Frazier, and it'll go from there then to the state. It's a pretty large document. It's not something that we share with the entire faculty. Something that takes a lot of time, and you've got to update a lot of your contacts and your emergency procedures. Some of the contents of that we share with our faculty, pull out certain pages and train on that. No one really has the entire binder except the superintendent of schools, Mr. Frazier, and the copy that I have myself, for obvious reasons that for safety and what the exact protocols would be in the case of emergency, we don't release that to the public. But just so you know that we've worked on that, and that's in good shape and good order. We've been having summer school at Gilmer County High School for both middle and high school students, and because Mr. Yoakum is here, and he's our high school, primarily our high school instructor, I thought maybe I would offer the floor to him for just a minute to talk about the success that the high school has had under, first it was Mr. Payne, and then Travis Fisher has been our school coordinator, and they both report up to Mrs. Mason for our summer school. So, Mr. Yoakum?
So I started out the summer with about 15 high school students. I can let you know that 11 of those students have made up one or more credits. So we've got 11 credits made up with a few more on the way. I'm super proud of these kids. They worked through the summer to get this done. And all of this work, it's not me instructing them. It's all self-paced through the Odyssey Web program. And when they have help, I try to help them best I can. I'm not very fluent in math, so I'm like, hey, Mr. Fisher, can you help these kids out? So we help these kids out the best we can, and I'm just proud of these kids making up so many credits. The middle school is there for academic intervention and building skills. They've been doing wonderful there. Miss Hickman, Kelsey Hickman is over that classroom, and then Miss Barker is over the STEAM and activities that we do, and we've had some amazing activities. We've done mousetrap race cars that the kids love doing. We did catapults that I instructed them on. Different physics went along with that, along with mousetrap cars. We've also tie-dyed t-shirts as a fun activity to kind of give them a break of all the thinking. And we're supposed to be donning those tie-dye shirts on Thursday, I think, for the activity that we're doing if we're still on it, pending weather. And then our school trips on Fridays, we've been going with the elementary school, and we went to various state parks. My favorite so bulltown historic. The kids had a great time. We took high school, middle school, we probably took about 10 kids, and we had a great time. They learned a lot of stuff, and even history, loved it. So, but yeah, summer school is going great, and we've still got 4 more days, and looking forward to those 4 days.
Are they able to recover any credits, or is it just specific stuff? Or?
In terms of, Shelley can correct me if I'm wrong, but students can only take credits that they've taken through the school year. So they can only take those that they have failed.
Right, it's only recovery. You
Yeah.
cannot do any Odyssey Ware as initial credit.
Okay.
It's this, in years past, several years ago, that had been tried, and no, you cannot do that.
Okay.
Now, something that Mrs. Mason has added in this year for us is that we have a credit recovery after-school tutor. So what that means is, even if you did not attend summer school, but you have credits that you failed, and you haven't had the opportunity to make it up in regular class room settings yet, you can go after school to that tutor, and over a period of time, recover that course. And for students that, of the 11 of the 15, if there's 2 or 3 that are close, but summer school has ended at the end of this week, at the beginning of the school year, they have opportunity to continue in that course and try to recover that. Now, you know, they have a little bit of window there at the beginning, because if they would pass it, then we need to put them in another class. And you know, so there's a little bit of window for those that's come through summer school. But these are good opportunities, especially for kids that's gone through, you know, COVID, when we went through that and got behind on a couple of courses and not on the path to graduate. It gives them opportunity to get back on track. So, thank you, Mr. Yoakum. We appreciate the work you've done this summer.
Thank you.
And all of our summer school teachers. I noticed that you have, I think, either electronic copy, maybe a printed copy of the student handbook. The handbook, some things that's changed. There's very, very few things really that's changed from last year. As as was presented to the board last year, 99.5% that's the same. The dates at the front, you know, the schedules and things like that. Some nomenclature, you requested, I think the academic awards banquet has had a new name that's in the handbook. We discussed changes with our LSIC in May. We also had a school leadership team meeting with our school leadership team June 14th, and we went over things there as well. They gave some additional suggestions. Then after that draft, we sent it back out to our LSIC again, through Michaela Fox and the contacts that she has for LSIC. We've not had an official LSIC meeting over the summer. We plan to have one at the beginning of the school year. And then I noticed that in the agenda tonight, you've mentioned meeting with the LSIC. Those meetings will be on the same nights that we have parent-teacher conference, and that will be at each midterms. We have our parent-teacher conferences at the high school level in between each 9 weeks. So there'll be 4 of those, plus the one at the beginning of the school year. We should have 5 LSIC meetings. So any of those 4, if you would want to come and be part of that, or to observe, or if you would like the LSIC to actually be part of your board meeting, there's counties that do that, schools that do that as well. So you just let us know how you'd like to proceed with LSIC. I've not got a lot of comments back through the summer from about the student handbook from the LSIC, mostly from our school leadership team that we had a meeting with this June. And those were some minor things. One thing I would talk about, just briefly, is we've been talking about cell phone use. And one of the things that we noticed with cell phones is that more than half of the cases where I'm subpoenaed to go to court because something drastically illegal has been done in our school, and I'm there to testify, or Mr. Payne can attest to this as well, involves a cell phone. And cell phones and how they're used in a school inappropriately is an issue that's tied directly to discipline issues. So we took a look at the school leadership teams, and can you take a look at that, and we've got some ideas there. And we looked at what we found in Clay County schools and what they do with cell phones. I talked some with Calhoun County schools, and also noticed that the principal for Parkersburg High School has kind of led a group of principals and submitted a letter that he's going to send out to his parents about cell phone use. And we kind of pulled all this together and looked at what our cell phone policy is, a little lighter than the surrounding counties, what we do in disciplining cell phones. But what our school leadership team kind of came to a conclusion was, let's do what our handbook says to do. Let's do what our discipline says to do. Let's do that consistently. And so we didn't make any major changes there. But I do want you to know that if you'd like a copy of what other places do, if you'd like to see that, if you'd like to see that letter, I don't know if maybe Superintendent Lowther forwarded that on to you. I think I sent that. But if you'd like to see that from Parkersburg High School, I can provide you a copy of that if you'd like to see what that says.
And Mr. Putnam, I haven't seen that one, so you forwarded it to me.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, sir.
Would you like to see it right now?
You can
I don't mean to surprise you with something, but this is not ours. This is his draft. And this is what they're going to use at Parkersburg.
Thanks, sir.
Wow.
Thanks.
Then if you'd like to see at some point, if you'd like to see what other counties do, we can talk about that too. One thing I'd like to mention is that we'd like to create this year a discipline matrix. So we found in one of our school leadership team meetings we had back in February, one of our teachers on that team brought us a matrix. And the matrix from a neighboring county looked like this. And I'm not suggesting that this is what ours looks like, okay? But this is, I'll not tell you the county unless you really want to know off the record. But they're very close to us. I'll just say that. Thank you. And what we thought that would be beneficial, I talked with Mr. Payne and Mr. Haynes about this idea and our school leadership team, is to make sure that when a student comes back for the 5th time, if they've done the same offense over and over, you're not just giving them one more day of detention, that it actually climbs in severity, depending on, number one, what level that the discipline is in 4373, but also that if they're repeat offenders, and it's becoming a habitual violation of school rules, that this is climbing in severity. We don't really have something like this. Mr. Payne and I would look up and see what they've done before. Lots of times Mr. Payne would talk to them about attendance and their grades as well. We had them in the office, and I would try to do that too. But they have a system to say, this time, this is the second time, this offense, here's what it looks like now. And I would just say, for the first offenses, we were lighter than what this is for our neighboring counties. So we have a blank, so mine looks like this, and hopefully with Mr. Haynes' help, we'll sit down and we'll look at what this, what this severity levels would be across this matrix. Just for your reference, there's also one that I brought you from Clay County again, and it follows very similar. This is in their handbook. We're talking about handbooks. And their cell phone policy is also in here. That's why I thought, well, I'll get 2 for 1. I might as well just flip it and print it for you guys. And you can see their first offense, second offense, third offense, and so on. And they put it in very fine print. But I have new glasses, so. And then if you, as you turn over to page 34 on theirs, you'll see their WCD, which is their cell phone policy. Okay, and what they do about cell phones. And they're, again, very similar to what Parkersburg High School is going to do, and a little more strict than what we are. They want it powered down and completely out of sight. Ours is just a little bit different than that. All right, I'll try to move more quickly. I'm not going to give you all this paper. I do have our cover letter that's going to go out with student schedules. And it describes a lot of the changes that's happened. Mr. Fraser's going to talk about all the things that we're doing in our school that are going to make our facility better. It describes the standards for effective schools and what our mission is with the standards for effective schools on page 2, I believe it is. And talks a little bit about clear backpacks and lockers. This year we've found a way that every student can have their own locker, and that's going to be very advantageous. Instead of charging a $5 fee for a locker, because we want to get new lockers in this coming year, which is something I probably should talk about in this presentation somewhere, we're not going to charge them for a locker, but everybody gets their own. But they're also going to be required to use them. So they can carry things in a clear backpack. If they have one, if they don't have a clear backpack, we will provide one to every student at the beginning of the year. We don't want them to think that we have to provide them to them. They have a locker. So you don't have to carry a backpack at all. That came about through COVID and some things that happened there and the things that happened with the bomb threats during that school year. And a combination of that's why they ended up with a backpack anyways. So there's that. And Mr. Chesser is working with me to develop an RFP, and we're going to release that. We've looked at other counties' RFPs for funding the lockers. We have levy funds for that, and that would be, of course, with your approval, sealed bid somewhere in the ballpark of 60 to 90,000. Don't write that down. I have no idea. I can guess, but it's going to be a sealed bid. So, hope it's real cheap. I hope somebody comes and does it for free. Sorry, Mr. Chester. All right.
All right, I caught you.
You got it. All right. He's caught up. All right. Scheduling. We had scheduling June 13th through the 15th. I want to talk real quick through this. We are going to, on August 8th, finalize and purge for any mistakes that we have in scheduling so we can mail the schedules out to students in 9 through 12, 6 through 8. We'll not have their schedules mailed to them. They'll go directly to homeroom, and then they'll know what their schedules are because they're in groups that are scheduled pretty much synchronously anyways. We've added some courses. We were able to add back the second driver's education course. We're glad to do that. That made large health classes and large PE classes, but we found a way to do it. We added some honors designations to some of our courses that are high level courses, that being trigonometry, physics, and chemistry 2. We removed honors designations from English 9 and Algebra 1. We had sections of those that were honors English 9, honors algebra 1, in order to kind of balance that grade inflation a little bit. You add honors, so it's a weighted course, so you take honors off of some to kind of try to keep that over the path of the student's career. We have added college environmental earth science back to our schedule. We've added another college course in math that's part of the college algebra. It's now broken up into 2 sections by 2 different semesters. You get college credit for each semester now, so it's an extra college, 3 hours of credit that a student can get. We're hoping to add a topics of U.S. history class. We'll talk about that. It's coming up, pending the approval of the board on those standards. It deals with the Civil War, focuses on the Civil War. We've added support labs. We had support labs for Algebra 1. We've added a support lab also for geometry, which I think is the first year, was last year. And then we're also adding a support lab in the schedule for Algebra 2. So the kids that are, I'm gonna say that are not students of special need necessarily, but are in that lower tier that need support in mathematics, as they go through the required courses of Algebra 1, geometry, and Algebra 2, they'll have opportunities to be able to have a support lab in their schedule. So they have Algebra 2, let's say, but then later in the day, they see that exact same teacher that's assigned that homework and those assignments to work and go over and have extra time that kids that are achieving higher don't necessarily have. We have an accelerated grade 8 Algebra 1 course that's added, so this is the first time back for several years, I think, of having Algebra 1 offered in 8th grade. And that's going to be taught by Mrs. McHenry for high school credit. She's also teaching another general Algebra 1 class. She's also adding in more minutes for middle school. So we've increased minutes per kid in middle school, not quite as much as we have in English and we have in reading, but we've added a significant amount of time back by her not teaching health. We're using her to give more minutes of mathematics to the middle school. That allowed Mrs. Barr to be able to teach a full computer science and computer coding and the computer mathematics course, and have a free period to be able to do that. We've added a CTE completion course, and Mrs. Chapman could talk to that better than I can, but I think it's personal finance, BCA, BCA 2, accounting 1, accounting 2. And when you complete that, you'll be a CTE completer at Gilmer County High School, and that's going to be more of a kind of a college/CTE track. So those are going to be our honors kids that's going to go through that track, and we schedule accordingly.
What is CTE?
Career and technical education. So what's offered down at the Career Center, all those CTE completion courses, Mr. Cox does that through agricultural science, through animal processing, through horticulture, and you can be a CTE completer and complete that work. We also have that's coming up through Mrs. Chapman as well. And that's an addition for our school. Okay, that's about it for right now. I can stop there. Any questions you might have for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna, just some facility updates, and I will try to get through it, but we've got a lot going on, so it's gonna take a minute here, but I'll start with the secure entry at Gilmer County High School. Where we're at right now, drywall in there, it's finished, but it's not painted yet. Door frames came in last week. We started installing door frames today, and we will install them as we work our way through the week. The drop ceiling in the conference room, command center, it is in. The contractor met with the fire marshal, so that's always good. We overall got his blessing. He did want to add a couple things. It kind of didn't make sense, and I'm glad the electrician found this, but we had a pool station, where you can pull the fire alarm in the man trap. And that kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense. That kind of defeats the purpose. If there's somebody in that man trap that we're trying to contain, we don't want them to have the ability to pull the fire alarm and where we're releasing the building and doors become unlocked. So that was a quick suggestion, easy fix. And the electrician caught that, which was very good. We're gonna add 3 emergency lights in the general office area. He just, not the big bug lights like you see over here on the wall, but within our lights, within our lighting, we'll add 3 emergency lights in there. If we lose power, there'll be more lighting in that general office area. And then he did want a sprinkler head added in that man trap area. So overall, it was good to get his approval with a few minor changes there. In the next 2 weeks, which are big for us, school's about to start. If you go up there, I'll be honest, I'm nervous right now. But we know school's about to start. They are telling us, they're assuring us, We'll be in pretty good shape when school starts. We'll be in pretty good shape August 11th when staff comes back. By the August 18th date, when students come for the first day, we should be in real good shape. But what you'll see in the next 2 weeks was finish door frames, patch the block openings around that, install the window, possibly paint. We should get the casework, the secretary's desk, the cabinets, things like that. We should get it the first week of August, which is next week. So we're getting really, really close on that. There's a lot to do, but they are, again, giving us a good feeling about finishing up before that first day for students. Me setting intentions, I think there's gonna be a few things to finish up at the end, once we're in school, sure, but I think for the most part, we're gonna be able to open up normal and be able to run normal. The only thing outstanding that they're nervous about is the canopy for the man trap, the end of the man trap, where a visitor to the school would wait for one of the secretaries, one of the admin staff to let them enter the man trap. There will be a canopy there. They're still hoping it gets in time, but that's the only thing they could not give us a date on. When will we see this? It's been ordered for quite some time, but the functionality of the man trap, the way we want visitors into the building, we are being told as we sit here now that we're gonna be in good shape for the first day of school. So that's the secure entry. Any questions on the secure entry?
Just one thing, Joe, when this is completed, involve Mr. Putnam too, I'm sure you guys are planning training with your staff and people on how to keep the school locked down in case something happens.
And you're right, and
That's really important. There isn't any need to spend all this money and do that and leave the back door unlocked.
That's a very important point. And our staff, I'm sure Mr. Putman and the admin staff there will hit on that in meetings. We'll hit on that in safety meetings. One thing that does currently happen, and maybe I should have made the board aware, but our local sheriff department, our local police city, they will do some routine checks on us. So they drive around our facilities. We want them at our facilities. And that's one thing, Mr. Minnie, they're looking for. We want to know if we're leaving the back shop's door open. We want to know if the gym doors are getting open or things like that, wherever it may be. So those are happening, but that will definitely be reinforced. And even though this is another layer of security, it's still only as good as our people in the building do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So good point. Anything else about the secure entry? We did add quite a bit, and just so thrilled with the bid coming in where it came in that we were able to add a lot of additional flooring. And when I say they're taking up the old tile and putting down new tile, in some cases taking up old, just, I hate to say it, but nasty carpet and putting down tile, replacing with tile. And we were able to do that, and really able to do that because the price for the secure entry was down so low. But just to catch you up on that, out in the science wing, that's the back of the building, the chemistry room's there. We have replaced 2 classrooms, took out the old tile, put in new. That science hallway, that is done, it's completed. Our custodial staff followed up the guys laying the flooring, and it looks great. And really, I'll tell you, we went from last school year, and I hate to say it, Superintendent, but we went from the ghetto back there to, I mean, it looks excellent. And Mr. Putman had the custodial staff, and they had some free time over the summer. They painted the walls, that flooring looks good, and it just, what an improvement back there in that science wing. Also, we had carpet in the 6 offices back outside the general office area behind Charlene and Dendra. There are 6 offices there, and we had carpet there. We pulled all that carpet and we've retiled it. Our custodial staff again followed, and they waxed it. They actually moved furniture back in those rooms today. So those 6 people are gonna have an office to work in when we get back. And that was big because we knew we were adding to this project. We knew we're up against school, but the flooring guys have been tremendous to work with. So that's ready to go. Just completed this morning, the media center, the old library, or the new steam room, the installation of tile was just completed. The custodial staff will start with waxing in there tomorrow. So hopefully by the end of the week, or by the beginning of next week, we're moving brand new furniture in that place. And that's gonna be a really neat room. I can't wait to see how that room operates. I know Mrs. Barker's very, very excited. I think that's gonna be a neat place in our building. And that room is very close to being completed. Also the vocational hallway, where these state champions walk through every day to go to practice. That hallway was looking pretty bad. It wasn't as bad as the ghetto, but it was getting bad. But we have painted those hallways, and they will start laying the tile in those hallways next week. So a lot of, just excited about doing that. Any questions on the additional flooring? Okay. With the ESG lighting, I'm happy to say, I think it's the last time I'll talk to the board about lighting. All the walkthroughs have been completed. All the punch list items have been completed. We're down to just a couple small things to wrap up lighting. So again, we're happy about it. We've talked to our admin staff in both buildings. We've talked to our custodial staff in both buildings, our maintenance staff. Hey, is anybody seeing anything that needs addressed with lighting? So just happy to say, this is probably the last time I talk about lighting. We're happy with it. Be happy to answer any questions about lighting if you have them. HVAC, and this is probably the one thing, so many things are going our way facility-wise right now. This is the one thing that's just kind of being held up. And I think we're just still, everything I'm getting, we're still recovering from COVID and things getting shipped in. I really do think it's in all lines of work, and I think everybody's facing this, but we're still just waiting on units. We've got a couple units sitting in the back parking lot at Gilmer County High School. We have some parts sitting there, and I know I've given you different dates. I just keep giving you the updates. I'm giving the new date I've been given is the middle of August, is the date they've been given, ESG's been given, of when those units will be arrived. W.R. Drake's gonna do that work for us. I hear nothing but great things about them. Never worked with them before, but hear nothing but great things about them as a contractor. And they want to let all the units, or at least most units, get here. The big cost of this, and I know this from experience when we've had to bring in a crane, is bringing in that crane to lift those units. This is a large crane that's gonna come lift those units on top of the building. They don't wanna bring in a crane for 1 or 2 units. They're trying to get one lift. I'm not saying that it happened in one day, but they're trying to get to where they have all the units in, where there's one day where they live. So we know now with the timeline, we're gonna be into the school year. Once we get the units in, we're gonna have to work with them, work with the high school administration. We're probably looking at a weekend here, a long weekend that we need them to put in. Maybe we catch a weekend where we're out on a Friday or something. But that's what we're probably looking at now for that crane day. It's some long weekend or something like that. But just waiting on material with the HVAC. Now, in saying that, out at the elementary school, in our existing units, those ionization units have been installed, but a couple. So during summer school out there, with the 40, 50 kids out there in summer school, and for simple terms, we're putting cleaner air out there. Cleaner air we were last year. And when kids come back to Gilmer Elementary, it should be cleaner air. These ionization units, that's what, in my simple terms, they're just gonna clean that air. And that has been installed, all but a couple of units at Gilmer Elementary. So that has moved, but the HVAC, the vocational section of Gilmer County High School, and the middle section of Gilmer County High School, we're just waiting on material. I have been told, I asked, they wanna do everything they can, and we told them, we can't shut down. We don't wanna lose school days. They understand that. They also don't think, once they get them on the building, they don't think we're gonna go days without air, without HVAC. So I think they'll do it in a way that we can manage and still be in school. It's just a matter of getting material here, getting that lift, getting them on the building so they can come work. That's the HVAC. Any questions on that?
We're not down anywhere though. I mean, we still have air blowing, like the kids are gonna be able to. Like,
Yes, right now, yes. We're currently just operating on our old system. We're just replacing in the middle section of the building with new units and a vocational with new units. Now, we've had our typical trouble that we sometimes have in the summer when these 95-degree days, real feels 100, where it's hard on these old units, and Sam and Steve are doing everything they can, our maintenance staff, to keep us up and running. And they've done that. When we have trouble, they're there, and relatively soon we're fixed, and we're not going days where students or staff or anybody's miserable. And I don't anticipate that in this project. If we see something coming, I'll be open, transparent with the board, and let you know, hey, we're gonna get a bunch of calls from staff members, they're miserable. But right now I'm being told that's not gonna happen, so that's good news. Any other questions, HVAC, high school? With the animal processing classroom, we've done a lot of work on this. I know it seems like it's moving slow, but there is way more to this than I ever envisioned. And I do like the approach we're taking. I know it's taking some time, but I think it's time well spent. And what I mean by that, we've had 2 meetings, and when I say those, Mr. Cox, as our in-house experts, how I refer to him with this, he's been involved with that. He's been involved every step of the way. We've had Greg Martin and Jason Shante with Williams and Shriver. Obviously, we need their help. They're designing this facility for us. We've had Mr. Putman involved in those, Clay involved in those, myself, Patty, and we've had Jason Harper, the engineer that Williams and Shriver works with. They've been involved with these meetings. So we've had 2 of those, each of those lasting 2 to 3 hours, and just staying busy, just working this out, trying to plan this out to every detail. We did just recently take a road trip to Charleston, and there's a fancy name for this place. I'm gonna call it Buzz Foods. But we toured Buzz Foods. It's a new animal processing facility, a brand new building. Now, I'm a little bit nervous, I'll be honest, about Mr. Cox, Mr. Putman, and Mr. Chester. They gave us the option, I mean, this thing, they go from the live animal that's there and breathing to its packaged and ready to sell, and they wanted to see the kill room. I'll be honest, I had no interest in seeing the kill room. I'm a city boy, and we didn't do that kind of stuff. But I went to Food Man and got it. But it was a great experience. It really was. And a couple big things that got answered in that trip for us. In our meetings here, a couple big things we were discussing, trying to decide which way, Nick brought up the floor and the material of the floor. It's gotta be a floor you can clean. It's gotta be a floor that they can hose out, disinfect, whatever, and come along with the squeegee and clean it, because we don't want any of that left. And after seeing that kill room, we definitely don't want any of that left. But it's also gonna be a floor we can't have students hurt. It can't be too slick. So the texture of that floor, and we decided right where our architects led us was basically what we saw there, and it's the perfect floor. And that was a big answer that we came across. We want this floor. Don't mess around with us, no more talking about it. Give us the floor they have. And we asked them about the floor. We had a debrief after the tour where we were able to ask them any question we wanted to ask. And is your staff happy with the floor? Is the staff, whatever? And the answer was that was not the floor they started with. That was the floor they went to. And that was the floor they adjusted to. So that was a big question we got to ask. Then we discussed forever in our refrigerators. You're going to have walk-in refrigerators, walk-in freezers. Do we need a floor? Or can that sit on a concrete slab? And how's that work? Every refrigerator, every freezer, every cooler, every whatever we walked in was just sitting on the concrete floor. And they're not losing air, they're not losing temperature, they're not losing anything like that. And part of that visit, we also had Kevin Tyrone with Hooten Equipment. Not saying he's getting our bid, not saying he's getting the equipment bid, but we needed some equipment expert to make sure we're talking the right things and we're gonna get the equipment that Mr. Cox and his students are gonna need. So he was part of that. And that was a big answer for us, that it can just sit, you don't need a floor. Because if we needed a floor, then we're talking about how we're gonna drain it, how we're gonna come in and clean it, where's the drain? So there was a lot of things factored in that, and that was just two things we learned from that quick tour, that was, again, a very worthwhile trip. Where we're at now and where we need to go, after our last meeting, after that tour, we just need to finalize plans with Williams and Shriver. They need to take every note we've done, everything we talked about, and they need to finalize their construction documents. Once those construction documents, they feel they haven't finalized with every note, every detail that all these parties have brought together, we need another meeting with us. And when I say us, it's the folks I mentioned earlier. Part of that meeting, we need the Department of Ag there. We need the meat inspector there. Before we even start, we need him to approve, hey, everything you're talking here is good, everything's fine, and then we need our local health department. So we need one more meeting with all those folks present. Let's make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to do. We're meeting every requirement we're supposed to meet, all right? Then the final construction documents, because this is an SBA project, and this is SBA funded, it will have to be submitted to the SBA, and they will have to get their final approval. So for all that to happen, I just asked today, for all that to happen, what are we looking at? I've got to tell the board tonight, what are we looking at? When are we gonna put this out? When can we see something happen? We're looking at 2 months. We're looking at 2 months to be bidding out the animal processing classroom. The things I just mentioned, what will happen in the next 2 months. Any questions? I know that was a lot. Please don't ask any questions about the kill room. I didn't. I was in there with my eyes shut.
Will it be, it'll be like USDA
Not
approved,
USDA,
or how will
but
that?
The Department of Ag opens okay.
I was going to the first.
He'll come in and I think he'll write us some kind of a custom license where we're not gonna be able to kill, but it'll allow us people to bring us stuff to cut up.
That's what I wanted.
And it's gonna be like, they write up a certain thing for schools because schools can only do so much anymore. But it'll be a special kind of thing.
Okay.
Mr. Cox brought up a good point there. I do want to clarify, even though I hit on that kill room. We will not be killing on site. The animal, the carcass will come to us.
Now, you better not say that, Joey.
Well, I hope we're not going to. If we are, I'm not going to participate.
I have one more question too, like,
Yeah.
Nick, and you'll probably be the guy. So will that just be like a class that's during the semester? Will that be an all-year class, like every semester we'll have that meat class? Or how exactly will the students utilize?
So that class is all year, and that's gonna run like a business, and somebody like you or your dad would be able to kill a calf themselves and bring us
Meat.
quarter it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and I'll have a carcass cooler with a rail that I can hang that for 2 weeks like it's supposed to be, and cut it however you want. I have one animal processing class right now, and that will be their curriculum. I mean, it's pretty much in their standards anyway, that's what they do. And so when I book stuff, it'll be them. From time to time, when I have other parts of my other classes that can do things in there, they'll be in there. There's gonna be times where, you know, we may have a lot going on and I may have to take 3 or 4 classes in there one day to work, to get caught up. Every class is probably gonna get to do something in that lab, but animal processing will most likely be in that lab every day.
And then the ham bacon.
And then all the ham and
Pigs.
bacon stuff happens, and during ham and bacon time, whenever I get a load of pigs, you know, I'll probably have every class out there except the 8th graders helping process whole pigs. We'll have anywhere from 15 to 30 or 40 pigs to do in 2 weeks.
That was another thing I wondered, if we'd be able to do more, because we've been kind of limited because of
We
Rome's,
will-
we're using Rome's facility.
When, I'm not trying to keep.
You're good.
When the architects come to us about sizes, I called a couple of other schools that are doing, you know, 80 pigs worth of, 80 hams to 100 hams and bacons and stuff. And I got their sizes of their facilities, and ours is right there with it. So I made it to where we have a lot of room
That'll be
to
nice.
expand up.
Yeah.
And I'm getting out of lane here, and I don't like to do it, Mr. Putman might speak to this, or Shelley, or even Nick. Another thing, Brett, to answer your question, as they're talking about a CTE completer program with Mrs. Chapman, this will also now allow Nick to offer a pathway to where these students can become a CTE completer. Before the meat shop or animal processing classroom, I think you could only teach intro.
Yeah.
And now he'll be able to teach the required classes, and it'll be another CTE completer program.
Yeah, when we made the visitation, they are looking for employees. They said all of these grocery stores around the state of West Virginia are lacking in butchers. They're getting their meat prepackaged, already cut up. And they said this completer program and the certificate that goes with it will eliminate part of their apprenticeship program, and that it's potentially that some of our students, if they're trained correctly, could come in at $20 an hour jobs and be able to be employed with them and skip a lot of the apprentice work.
Mr. Cox pretty much got a guarantee that if he sends a kid to them, they're gonna put in work.
Buzz Foods has a curriculum that they were telling us about. They said they'd kind of share it with us. And we, even in that meeting, when we got done touring, I said, what would you take it if we give a kid a card that says they've spent X amount of hours running the meat bandsaw? And some of the different equipment, they really like that idea.
I can see
I knew
there's a need.
about the accreditation of CTE.
I think it's going well. I think it's going well. I think it's going about as well as it can go right now. We're people, we want it right now.
Yeah.
I do think the proper planning is taking place, and it's gonna be really good. Anything else about the animal processing classroom? One thing kind of tied to it is that drainage issue. I spoke to the board before out back. We do have to get that fixed, and it's really the length of the building that we have a drainage issue out back. At some time ago, we basically filled a ditch, an existing ditch with rock. I think that worked for a while, but over time, dirt and things have gotten in that rock, and the water really has nowhere to go, so it's coming towards the building. And it's really the length of the building out back. But as we put this money into the animal processing classroom, we know that side of the building, we cannot have water coming into this. So we know we have to address it. We've been working with SLS. They have done the site survey. They gave us a call last week and gave us their recommendation. Basically what they're gonna recommend in simple terms is a French drain. A French drain that from the steps out there that go to that back parking lot towards the animal processing classroom, it all drain that way toward the Woodford property. And then from the steps towards the apartments on the east wing of the high school, that part would all drain that way. And we'll see. We did ask them to put that in parts for us, kind of part A, part B, knowing that the priority had to go to the side with the animal processing classroom. That if we have no idea what we're looking at here, obviously that'd be something the board approved. Right now, they are designing, or we've asked them to give us their design fee to design this French drain for us. And that is where we're at right now. We're waiting on SLS to get us their design fee to design how to fix this. And then we, of course, ask for permission to bid it out and go from there. But that's the drainage issue out back. Last thing, maybe, is the storage building at Gilmer Elementary. You guys gave us permission to start on that and work on that, and we're thankful for that. Where we're at right now, we're finalizing the construction documents. Harper Engineering needs to finish their specs with the electrical components, with the HVAC components of this storage building. Once they finish that, we need one more meeting with our staff here. It's of course, obviously, we'll be talking to the superintendent, we've been Clay, myself. With this one, we'd be working with, Mr. Price and Mr. Fox out at the elementary school. Make sure we're on the same page, make sure it's meeting our needs, make sure we get fire marshal approval before we do anything. And then this project, we should be ready to bid out that storage building within about 4 weeks, just to give you a timeline there. So within about 4 weeks, we should be able to bid out, that storage building at Gilmer County. And really, it's been, in my opinion, the biggest need of that facility since it was built, is a storage building. Anybody, any questions at all, or anything else? That's all I have.
Joe, I just want to make a comment about the drain up there. I would be careful about that and make sure I get something good, because about 10 years ago, the state engineers decided to fill all the ditches up with rocks. And then it come big thunderstorms like we got today, they all blocked up, and now all those rocks are cleaned out of there and they've made ditches again. So whatever kind of system you put in there, let's make sure we get one that's gonna be there to last.
I think it's a fair and good point, and it's one reason we went with the SLS. Instead of us just saying, how can we fix this back here? We went to the
Right.
professionals, they have done some storage drainage, quotes or estimations or whatever, they set up there, they looked at it. I've sent them videos, Clay and I went up there one hard rain, Nick was there that day, and I've sent them videos of what's happening back there. So that's hopefully, what I'm hoping, Mr. Minnie, SLS will take all that into account for us with their recommendation, with their design, and then once we bid it out, the contractor builds it per spec, and it should be able to handle everything. That's what I'm hoping.
And that's been a problem for a while, so that'll be good to get that.
You're right
solved.
about that.
Yeah,
Any other questions at all from me, facilities, anything?
thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
What was it, Shane?
Well, some others took some of my time. Mr. Cox was talking too. I had to be talking.
23 hours, 20.
Hey, Shelley.
I want to thank Mr. Cox for mentioning Everett Mason for the Parley Pro. For those of you that don't know, that's my father-in-law. So I do have a few things to mention. You did approve the Renaissance license during Clay's section, and I do want to mention exactly what that is. That's a lot of money, and every year we ask for that. That is a system that takes care of our benchmarking, and we do a lot of data review. We do a lot of data disaggregation with that information. We bring teachers in 3 times a year, and we look at it at various times and talk about how to improve student performance. So not only do we use it with benchmarks, there's also a component in there called MyOn. And that is a system that allows the computer to read books to kids. So kids that are having trouble, kids that are too young, it reads so many books. There's also another piece in there that's called AR, and that's Accelerated Reader. And Ms. West uses that every evening for the after-school program. So kids read books on their various lexile levels or instructional levels, and then they go into the AR system and they take books or quizzes, and then they put the 100% around the cafeteria. I don't know if any of you have been over there, but it's really neat for those kids that make 100% on their AR quizzes. The other piece that's also in the AR program, or the Renaissance License program, is the AR Math, and that allows teachers to develop different lessons based off of the student need. So if the student's having trouble with fractions, then a teacher can assign that. The other thing that we have explored this past year is developing assessments, standards-based assessments using Renaissance. That is another capability that program does have. So very nice program, and the teachers do utilize it a lot. The other thing I wanted to mention, I have several other things, but I did want to talk just a little bit about summer school. Our summer school program will be ending this Friday. The elementary and the high school have had lots of opportunity to attend different state parks this year, and they've traveled a lot. They've done various field trips. I know Mr. Fisher today actually had called me because there's a chance of rain this coming week, and he did want to take them somewhere. The elementary school's planning a carnival type activity, and he he had mentioned going to the Weston to tour the glass factory and the insane asylum. So, I worked with Clay a little bit, and that does look like we are gonna be able to take those high school kids there. Numbers for the summer school have been wonderful. We do have a lot of kids that at the high school level, we're trying to recover credits. We do have middle school kids who are trying to, a lot of times it's just a place for them to go, so that they have a meal and some activity. So we did start out summer school with 42 students. And then after that, with high school kids, once they finish that credit recovery piece, they finish that class, they want to stop. They don't want to come anymore. So our numbers have decreased greatly as those high school kids are finishing up. And we're glad they're recovering those credits. That's very important. At the elementary level, we started out with 69 kids, and with the elementary school, that's a little bit different. We maintain those numbers. They're not working for credits. They're there for summer fun. So we do maintain that. Attendance, of course, at the elementary is wonderful. At the high school, again, you're looking at kids after they finish that recovery of credits, they do tend to quit coming. Any questions on the summer program or the Renaissance Learning program?
I just wanted to know if the tour is gonna be of the old insane asylum or the new one.
Well, it's gonna be of the old one, the historical building.
The Renaissance Learning,
Uh-huh.
like, you told me everything that it does, but what exactly, we pay that money for, to whom?
The licensing.
The licensing, so it's like a software
Yes.
on the computer.
And this time of the year, you're gonna see a lot of things as those licenses come due, because a lot of them are above the 5,000 mark. That's specifically for the elementary portion, so half of that, well, a little over half of that comes out of Title I. And Title I, when you get into federal programs and Title I, you do have to monitor and have progress checks. That's through ESSA, and that's how we as a school system have decided to do that.
Cover ourselves right there through the website.
Yes.
Just curious.
Any other questions with Renaissance or the summer program? The next thing is the new teacher training. Last year, Tracy DeWall and I worked together, and Gilmer County has not had new teacher training for new staff that's just coming into Gilmer County. Regardless of how many years they've taught, things in Gilmer County are different. The requisition process is sometimes different, who you send that requisition to. So we work with new teachers, and we're gonna do that on Thursday, August 4th. We're gonna bring them in that morning. And last year I thought it would be a couple hours, but it seems like whenever I'm involved, sometimes it is much longer. But anyways, there's a lot of good information that I feel like we share with those new teachers. We bring in WBEA and AFT. We talk about how to get, if they're interested, if they want to participate in those types of unions, we help them with that. We fill out paperwork if they have any questions involving their paycheck or direct deposit. We've got Sherry there that answers questions. We spend a lot of time on technology. We distribute their computer devices. We talk about how to log in, the passwords for everything. And we've got lots and lots and lots. I mean, we've got a book of passwords. We go over and we make sure they can get in. So again, that's going to be Thursday, August 4th at the board office. And you are more than welcome to come. It starts at 9 o'clock. Beginning of the year. We will be sending out beginning of the year packets this week, and just to kind of run down what you're going to see, because you also will receive those packets. Mr. Putnam, I believe, mentioned it, but Mr. Price, we are going to offer the principals one extra day outside of their 200-day contract for elementary and high school to meet with their staff and to go over anything that they want to. I know Mr. Price had mentioned that they were going to go over how to do their rotations with their scheduling, and the high school is also going to review some different things. August 11th will be an in lieu of day. So when you get your packet and are wondering what that is
teachers had sent in regard to professional development and what they desired. And they wanted some mandatory training online. They didn't want to sit through session after session after session, because we did do that, and we will do that if that's what they want. But the majority had indicated they wanted online training. So we did purchase Vector Solutions, and starting July 1 of their 200-day contract, or their contract year, the fiscal year, they were allowed to go ahead and start those trainings. And it is a day, I mean, when you start to add up the minutes, it is a day-long session. And then August 12th, we will have a full, whole county-wide that morning. We'll have breakfast from 8 to 8:30, a light breakfast, and some time for them to visit, sign in, get their paperwork, and then we will have an opening session at 8:30, and you're more than welcome to attend that. And again, you will receive that in the mail, and we hope to send that out this week. And then August 15th, which is that third day of professional development, you're looking at training on textbooks for science, because that was a new adoption. You're looking at Reading Horizons training, which is a new component that really focuses on phonics. So it is jam-packed. When you talk about teacher training, it is jam-packed, full. Any questions on the beginning of the school year? Mr. Putnam had mentioned a little bit, you do have standards in your packet that does say Civil War. What we are looking at is starting a course called Topics in U.S. History, which would encompass on and around the era of the Civil War. And those standards are based off of the National Civil War Restoration and Society. So that is what is in your packet, if you've seen that and are wondering about that. Are there any questions on those standards? And just so you'll know,
What level will this be taught at?
it will be high school, because.
Well, I'm sure that, but I would like, would it be like,
Ninth and tenth.
Yeah.
9th and 10th?
9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, it can vary. Primarily 9th and 10th graders will probably pick that.
Okay.
It's not part of the 4 required courses, because you're looking at U.S. history,
Contemporary studies,
contemporary
civics, and world history.
That's not part of the 4 required graduations, to be an elective that kids can take. One of the conversations we have is kids do have an option in the science. You know, they can take their 3 required, and then they've got physics and physical science, and then this would just be something for those kids who are interested in the social science.
Cool.
Any question on that?
Have options in math as well.
They have options in math as well. Yes, they do.
So will that, for history, expand to like different topics, to, you know, World War II, maybe 1 year or something, or are you gonna go straight to?
Right now, we're gonna start with this because of the standards that we're looking at. But we have talked a lot about how we can expand that, with the staff that we have. We're gonna start with this and see how it works out, and then see what we can do. Any questions? All right, then the last thing I wanna talk with you about is the assessment handbook that was in your packet. I would like for you to turn to page 1, and these are the assessments that we do give throughout the school year. I mentioned the benchmarks with Renaissance, which is required. The other thing that I do want to point out is a lot of times people say, oh my goodness, this is crazy. We do a lot of assessments, but when you go down and look through the grades that these are assigned to, for example, the Bergans, only preschool takes that. Preschool takes the ELRS and the Bergans. Those are the two things that they do. They don't do, and PALS, they don't do all of the other things. So when you look at that, I just kind of want you to make note that only certain grades take certain assessments. So it's not every kid taking all of these assessments. The other thing I wanted to make note of is that some of it is required by federal law. For example, the ELPA. If we have any student students who are English speaking, we are required to give that. So that's not optional, that's under Title III. I talk a lot about these assessments when I present the benchmark findings. I know specifically, I talk a lot about STAR. And this is just a comprehensive overview of everything that I talk about. So if you have a question about PALS, and you think, what is PALS? What is that? You can go under the PALS heading, and it tells you clearly what that is, what it assesses. You can flip back to the appendix, and there is information in regard to what the words mean. So, the other thing, I talk a lot about STAR. So when you do have time, if you haven't, page 4, 5, 6 addresses STAR. And STAR's got lots of pieces to it. Not only do we assess our older kids with the STAR reading and math, but we also assess our first grade with the early literacy. So it explains the difference between those two pieces. We also talk a lot about the general summative assessment, which is what we take at the very end of the school year for accountability and proficiency. And there's a bunch of information in here in regard to that as well. There were some additions this year to the assessment handbook, and we did add the citizenship test in the American history. And again, that is state required. That's what's passed through legislation. So, and then one of the things, it is a lot of information to take in. We do meet with teachers because I know when I give this to teachers, they're not going to read it. They're thinking, oh my gosh. But what we do is we meet 3 times a year, and we take little pieces of it, and we talk about it, and help them go through their data, and help them see where the areas of need are, and work to try to build that up for the teachers and the students. Any questions?
Just one statement. I think, looking at this board and the new board, I'd hope we set some goals. And I'd hope one of those goals is gonna be academics, which should be the most important thing to all of us. And I hope at the end of the year, we can come back to you and you can tell us where we're at right now and how far ahead we are at the end of the year. That's what I'm looking forward to as a board member, because I think that's the area that we really need to look at. All the other things matter as well, because if you got a good FFA group and you got a good ball team, you got all that, your morale's good and you're gonna perform better academically. It all works together. So I'm interested in where we're performing now and where we're at in March or April of next year. And I think that as we set together as a board, we need to develop goals in those areas, and that should be one of our major goals in the academics. As a matter of fact, the state requires that of boards to have it as a goal. So we will have academics as one of our goals, I'm sure. But I know it's a lot of work, and you do a good job, Shelley, and I know you work countless hours. So I'm looking forward to having good progress this year in academics.
Yes, me too. And I did not set the thermostat. He's giving me the evil eye, and I'm like, I have not touched it.
We're dying.
It is hot.
I thought it was just right.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's the facilities man?
I know people think Shelley was in here touching that thing, and I was not.
Well, the next on the agenda is me, so I'm not gonna take very long to talk about the Career Center. The thing that they've got going on down there this summer is basically what we're doing. They're overhauling a lot of things because they got ESSERF money, and they're putting it into their building and putting a new roof on their building and putting new air conditioning units, and they also can't get units in, Joy. So it's a kind of a universal problem, but that is what they're working on this summer, basically. And their summer school, I think they said they had 170-some people that participated in the summer camps and summer schools in Calhoun County. That's the Career Center and the county together. And they don't call it summer school there, they call them summer camps. But they had good participation according to the superintendent's report. That's all I have about the Career Center, and we'll move on to new business, the mowing contracts, Joy.
We would recommend, and it's in a past, packet, the bids, where the bids came in, we only had the 2 bids, and we would recommend Ramsey Lawn Care at $20,000 for our
Mr.
mowing.
Frazier, we included it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes.
I'll make the motion, we approve that.
I second.
Joy, this is the second year in
We
a
both
row
bid,
that
so
you
just
bid
choose
these
one.
out, and we got a bid that I thought was way lower than we'd ever get.
I
Both years,
100% agree.
this year and last year, so
I agree.
that's a great bid.
Yeah.
So, it's been moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Then the next one is the milk bid approval from United Dairy Incorporated.
Yeah, and milk right now in the state of West Virginia is really tough on all school systems. There are only 2 vendors that are servicing milk bids in the state of West Virginia right now. We did send a bid to both vendors. Unfortunately, we only got the 1 bid with United Dairy. Now, we have worked with United Dairy for years. They've been our successful vendor for years. So we do recommend United Dairy. I believe that number is $79,606.
Yes.
Please. And that would be our recommendation.
I move we accept United Dairy for the milk bid.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then the next topic is approval standards. It says for Civil War history course, but it's actually topics in U.S. history. The course code is 7237. It's already been established, and the focus will be on the Civil War, the topic for this year.
I make a motion to accept that.
I second.
Any discussion? Just one thing, how did we come up with this, Mr. Putman, the Civil War? Is this a high school course?
So, we happen to have a certified social studies teacher that is also, holding her class in the new STEAM Media Center classroom. And, she has taught this course before, has expertise in it. And, we had 3 or 4 different pathways that we could add an elective, and given that social studies has none, and we had a staff member with expertise, it just was a perfect fit.
Okay, this is an elective course.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Do I have a motion to approve these standards?
I make the motion.
I second.
Been moved and second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then the schedule of meetings with LSIC, I did provide you with a list of board meetings for the year. If you want to look at that and schedule a meeting with LSIC in conjunction, or as Mr. Putnam had said, their LSIC isn't midterm. Mr. Carter, do you do midterm?
Well, we have to do the board meeting
Board meeting,
before a
yeah.
year, and it's in our handbook, I didn't know that this was gonna be something that you guys wanted to do, so I just went ahead and have published when I say published, included it in our draft handbook of what our LSIC meetings would
Let
be.
me just double check what this policy says. Do you recall if we're supposed to have a certain number or?
No.
One before September 15th and 4 in
I
Well,
remember
that's
that.
for LSIC, but for the board, I mean,
It
unless
just
you're a local
says-
performing school.
That's right, yeah, I thought you asked about that.
Yes.
The board shall conduct meetings with all local school improvement councils at date, times, and places fixed to its first meeting in July of each year.
So are we going to just meet once with each LSIC, or are we gonna meet more? That's a question we need to answer first.
I will tell you that the policy is based on 2014, and since then, there has been a revision for LSIC to where it was mandatory meeting, but now the mandatory meeting is low performance school. So basically, it's gonna be an option of how often that you want to meet with the LSIC.
Yeah, that's what we need to decide. How often do we wanna meet with each school's LSIC?
I would just propose perhaps an initial meeting with each LSIC and get a feel for it and what comes up and performance of the schools and then go from there.
And then if we need another one, contact the principals.
And that would be reasonable to me.
Well, do you principals feel that that's okay, just to have a meeting and go from that?
I've seen it a couple different ways. I've seen the LSIC to have their meeting on the same evening as a board meeting, convene here, and immediately thereafter, when they are done, then the board meeting starts, the official board meeting in your agenda. We have this consecutive in the same evenings. I've seen the board go to schools and actually hold their board meeting after the LSIC meeting in the school building as well, and have a board meeting at a school, as long as that place of gathering is announced. I've seen it different ways. I've also seen the LSIC come to the board and present to the board what they found and what they've done, and that counts as their LSIC in conjunction with a board meeting. So it's just whatever you prefer, and we can make the schedule work on our side.
I would kind of be interested in having a board meeting at the schools so we could see the new things that were
Yeah.
done and.
I would too, and the reason for that being is I think you might get some people to come to the meetings that otherwise wouldn't come. It'll just be a time for the school to showcase the kinds of things that they're doing for educational purposes. So, that's my, opinion. I've done it both ways too, Mr. Putman. I've had the board have them at my school when I was a principal, and I've gone out to schools as a superintendent and had the meeting. So it works either way, but I just prefer, as an administrator, I prefer as much input as I can get from anybody to make the decisions concerning everybody. So I think if we could meet at the school, that would be good. And we'd ask maybe, do you have any idea of what month would be good for any of you board members? Or maybe Mrs. Lowther could schedule a meeting for,
I mean, I suppose we want it kind of towards the beginning, but maybe not August, since everything's just starting then, maybe September or.
September. Can we do both of them in
I was
September?
thinking October, because September 15th, we may have.
Yeah, we have election of officers
Yes.
on September first in our school. That would be the election of officers. That has to be before September 15th.
So,
October. How about that, October? That work?
Yeah, and so, and just so I understand what you guys are, you want to meet with the LSIC, or would that be attendance of an LSIC meeting? Because there really are two different things there.
We would,
Yes, we want to meet at the school, hold the board meeting at the school. Your LSIC meeting will be at the same time, and they can present whatever they need to the board meeting, because they'll already be there. Is that?
I would like to do the one for us that would be in the second 9 weeks midterm. That's where I'd like to be. If that's not too late for you guys.
When
would
is that,
be?
Mr. Putnam?
I'll bring that up.
Keep in mind, fall season, you know,
Why don't we just put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and you and Mr. Price come up with a time that you can meet with us? Is that all right? And that gives you a chance to talk to your staff and people.
We'll just have the meeting at the school.
I love the idea of having it at the school.
Yeah.
so you wanna postpone?
Yeah, just put it on next board meeting's agenda.
Okay.
And by that time, the principals will know
Make a
what they.
motion that we postpone the scheduling of the LSIC meetings until the next board meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to postpone the LSIC and board meetings till next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
And then you had, committee development for policy review.
That was an idea that you brought up, Cody. You got anything to say about that?
I just think that we need to put a committee again together to review the policies that we have. You know, most of the policies in the handbook that we were provided are 2014. You know, again, there's gotta be, you know, state revisions and stuff to those. So I think if a small group committee works on that, you know, we can, you know, along with Lisa and the superintendent, you know, we can get those situated and up to date where they should be.
I would suggest maybe having a school administrator also participate
That's a
in
good
the
idea.
review.
Well, I would just appoint you as the president of that committee, and you can select who you need to work with you. somebody that will want to.
Do we have a limit on how many committee members, because we don't wanna have a meeting with,
How about a school administrator and a board member,
You can
the
have
secretary,
additional board
service
members.
personnel,
okay,
and, I think 5 or 6 is all you need, 'cause if you get too many, it's not gonna be very functional.
I would like to ask Dr. Miller to serve on that committee with me.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Should we, what about student council?
I don't know, I think the president can appoint committees, can't he, Patty? Yeah, so I'm just gonna make a policy committee, and it'll be headed by Cody, and Dr. Miller will be on it with him, and they'll include an administrator and a teacher, and whoever else service personnel, and,
And, I also asked Judy Stoniker, because she's also the keeper of the policies.
okay.
Maybe would faculty senate, like appoint someone or
I was thinking that for the teacher recommendation.
something, yeah.
So Cody, you'll work on
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
I'll,
Okay.
I'll work with that. Yeah.
All right,
Do we have a motion, because I think it's an action item?
A motion to develop a committee for policy review.
have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Cody, it looks like you're in business. The next thing is discussion of policy 4130, and this is job posting policy.
I also included for you policy 4102 and policy
Yeah.
5000 in the state, and they all go hand in hand when you're looking at hiring and
Right, they're all personnel policies. We'll discuss them one at a time here and see how they go with the others. The postings, right now, a posting position, the superintendent has the authority to determine existing positions posted, and any newly posted positions will be voted on by the board. That's basically what 4130 says. And,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, you noticed that it was updated in 2019.
Yes, it was updated in 2019. In this goes along with policy 5300. Policy 5300 gives the superintendent the right to recommend to the board a candidate, and the faculty senate can also recommend a candidate. And if the faculty senate and the principal and the superintendent recommend a candidate, the way I read the law, then the board has no choice but to hire that person. They shall hire him. But the law also says the board shall hire the most qualified person. So what we're saying is that, what that policy says to me is we have to trust the faculty senate, the principal, and the superintendent to recommend the most qualified person. And there's criteria in there, quite a bit of criteria, very specific. Like, it would be pretty simple to know whether somebody had a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. And the one with the master's degree would have to be rated over the one with the bachelor's degree. So you gotta do it by the criteria. But there is no choice when it comes to teachers about the appointment of personnel. Now, when it comes to administrators, I would question that. I would say that the board has more authority to appoint people than. Policy 5300 was written specifically for the appointment of teachers. And if anybody thinks any different than that, you can speak up. Like I said, I'm the type of guy that likes to listen to differences of opinion, but that's how I interpret it. So if there's a teacher's position comes open and the faculty senate can agree with the principal and the superintendent on who they want, and the board has to hire that individual. The principal's position, I think, administrative position's a little different. And policy 4130, and this is something that Cody can work on, we'll put this in the revision too, and check with the State Department, make sure all this is clear. The thing that I would like to see changed in 4130, I would like all administrative positions to be approved by the board. Not teaching positions and not service personnel.
As defined by, like vice principal, principal, central office staff, is that? How would you define
I would say
administrative?
there's anybody that would require, the job would require an administrative degree level.
Yeah, that's what I would say, any administrator.
Okay.
When an administrator goes, I think the board has an obligation to decide what to do with that position.
Okay.
And,
I agree with that.
but anyway, Cody, on your committee, that's the first one you can work on, okay? And then we had policy, state policy 5,000, for all you new board members, and listen, I just spent probably 6 hours going through these things with the state. Policy 5,000 is one that explains the hiring process and what the certifications and all that are to hiring a professional personnel, teacher. And it spells out the criteria. The criteria is very specific and should be real easy to select somebody from. Well, it's never real easy, but it should be relatively easy to select somebody that's taught for 20 years, has a higher degree, and has all good evaluations and good community relations and gets along with everybody. I mean, those are the kinds of things that you look at in the criteria. So the faculty senate uses the same criteria that the principal uses when they're looking at somebody in their school. So we don't, there's nothing we can do. Policy 5300, policy 5000 is a state policy, but it's what all these other policies are formed around. And the other policy we was looking at was 4102, professional personnel, and it's the application of criteria for hiring classroom teachers. Appropriate certifications, license or both, amount of experience relevant to the position. Somebody might have worked 10 years as a social studies teacher, but if you're hiring a science position, that could mean nothing. So that it's relevant. The amount of coursework, degree level, or both is important in the criteria, and it goes on. There's several of these. Seniorities, another one. There's several of those specific criteria in 4130. That I don't have a problem with 4130, but that might be that I can think of that I think needs anything done to it. You can look at it, Cody, and decide that. If anybody else has anything, they can speak up. 1030 is the only thing I saw in this policy. I would like to see all postings, regardless of what they are, posted on the internet. The better candidates that you are exposed to, the better staff you're gonna have. And, if they get out there on the internet, you can bet there's gonna be a lot of people looking, and your chances of getting somebody. So that's the other one, Cody, but that's the only thing I can see. Does anybody else have anything to say about that one? That's the only thing I could see in it that I think that I would change.
Policy 1030 is about the board meetings itself.
Yeah.
You'll notice that it says draft, and the conversation that we had prior to the new board coming on was during the COVID where we were participating remotely. And can you take a cell phone or a device into executive session? That was the driving force behind the draft of policy 1030. Mr. Minnie and I did learn that, by keeping them out of the executive session, by saying they can't participate via phone, then you're limiting their ability to make the decisions after after you come out of. Remember Mr. Booth was saying that?
Yeah, we were operating under the assumption that you couldn't take a cell phone into a executive session. But that's not what the state's telling us now. They're saying that you can take a cell phone in there, and the person that has that cell phone is, or if they're attending remotely and they're at their house, they gotta run the wife out of the room when they're having the executive session. And it's their responsibility to do that. We cannot not let them participate because it's a meeting, which I thought personally that was the best way to do it, but I got told by the state that's not the way it is. So this whole section that's marked in yellow there, and I'm supposing you got the same thing I did, that we need to look at that, Cody, and update that section of the policy on
So they can attend?
executive session by phone.
Okay.
And see, our policy says no, well, the draft policy.
Yeah.
Right.
So that'll be something we'll have to.
That'll have to be changed. You got that, Cody?
Yep.
Okay. But that's why we've been operating under those premises, and that's not what we're told that needs to be done, so. And I can understand both sides to that. The person, a board member, I'm a board member, and if I'm at home attending virtually, I surely should be professional enough to keep my family out of the meeting. And you should too, as a principal or as an employee. So those are the things that I see, and that just refers to the meetings, that policy does. Is there anything else about those policies? Does anybody else have any questions that we looked at? And at the next meeting, Cody, maybe you can give us an update of who you've got to help you participate and all that. We don't expect you to have anything done with their policies by that meeting, but just your committee organizing together as to what to have done. The next thing then we want to discuss on the agenda is the resource officer. Anybody have any ideas about a resource officer?
I just wanted to throw this out. I did give a call to Dr. Ken Lang, who's our department chair of criminal justice at Glenville State, just to get some information about the laws, about the policies, about, how this kind of thing operates. And what I would like to suggest as chair of the safety committee is that we maybe have a safety committee meeting about this topic, and we bring our options together, and I would even like to bring Mr. Lang in to maybe talk to them and just kind of see what the trends are, because that's his bag. He knows what's going on elsewhere and what the trends are in this kind of situation. And so I'd like to kind of meet with the safety committee and maybe bring him in as an expert to talk to us about it.
So you can do that, and how long do you need before you can get back to us?
Let's see, well, let me
Next meeting?
start out tomorrow and I'll see how quickly I can get it done.
Okay.
And
If
I'll
you can
send
get
an
it for
email
the-
out.
If you can get it done for the agenda, just email Patty to put it on the agenda.
You got it? I can do
And
that.
Brett had talked to a friend of his in Lewis County.
Yeah, they work through some grant money to do some of theirs, but then they also pay.
And that's what this was, the grant that they go through.
But I looked today and I couldn't find the current application.
So on the resource officer, we'll wait for Dr. Barr to meet with the safety committee and come back with ideas of what we should be doing. How's that?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Do you have a committee? Or is it-
There's
Facility director, Joe, and then we also had, the sheriff, the city police, now the board member, campus police.
Yeah, that's the county-wide, and then each school has one, we meet with them when needed.
Each school has a safety committee, right, Joe?
Yes, yes.
And that's who Dr. Barr's talking about, I think.
Well, I don't wanna speak for Dr. Barr.
Okay.
But I was assuming that's where he would go. We have a county level, that's, the administrators, the principals, and then obviously we try to get somebody from each branch, from the city, from the county, from the state. Our county emergency director, Williston College, and their people, we try to get them involved in the county safety meetings. And then each school, where Mr. Plum and Mr. Price would have a safety committee within their school.
Okay.
So I don't know how far you wanna go, how deep you wanna go, but
I'll
that's
tell you-
what we have in place.
If it's all right, could I email the three of you, and Brett's gonna join up on this one, and we can come together on a common consensus, and then I'll
That sounds
forward
good.
that to you and disseminate it to the rest of the board?
Sounds good.
I was
Okay.
also talking with Jason, I'd like to join him with on like our special committees, with the safety, I was on with auditing, and, just sharing that, I'd like to also share, with Jason and, be on that safety committee as well.
Okay.
Would you assign that?
That's cool.
And I don't know,
Got it.
I think maybe Jason or Dr. Barr, we may wanna make sure Clay's involved, anytime we pursue this, obviously there's gonna have to be some money.
Right.
Take place. So,
Yeah.
I think his input would be valuable as.
I agree.
as explorers, especially if we get, anything worthwhile and get serious about it, there's gonna be some money involved.
That's fine with me, absolutely. Clay and I used to work together, I think we can still do this, right? That's right.
So when you get it, you get ready to, for the board to meet, you'll, pop us an email and we'll get it on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
You got it.
And thank you for volunteering to do that.
Absolutely. Glad to do it.
A lot of
Thank you,
work.
Brett.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing we had was discussion of the school handbooks, and everybody should have received a copy of those handbooks. And if you have anything now that you would like to discuss about them, the principals are here, I'm sure they'd answer any questions that we might have. I didn't, from my standpoint of view, I'm looking at them, I didn't see anything that I saw that was really a problem. And I know it takes an awful lot of work to do these handbooks and everybody that it involves to get them done. But they are pretty much how your school's guided from the rest of the year. So they're really important.
Tyson, on page 2, my name is spelled wrong.
We have not sent for print.
Don't have a spell check, right?
Yeah.
Does the high school handbook has, never mind, I don't wanna ask that, because you're still there. Just all the cell phone talk, I didn't know if you had changed anything right now, like, kind of and your discipline program that the template that you had showed with the different discipline, or are we still sticking and just enforcing what you had in last year? Did your discipline change anything?
So what is not spelled out in the high school handbook is what happens in different levels of severity when kids repeat the same offense. And I think that's a gap for us. And I think that should be done, with student council, with LSIC, with the school leadership team involved, and to develop a matrix, with the new, assistant principal, myself, and under, Patty's, recommendation or under her advisement, and then share that out. And now, I think we do that to some extent. I don't think we give the same thing over and over, and I think that's, but in some cases, we found that we did. And, sometimes we come across a student that maybe the 10th time, we say, oh my goodness, this is the 10th time the student's been in here, and all they've received is detention, and maybe different degrees of that. And, upon looking at our data at the end of the year, I think we need that. And I find that in other handbooks, I find that in other schools. It just seems like a gap that we have that's never really existed. So, I'd like to do that over the course of the school year and have advisement, maybe, put that in place this year. It's not in the handbook. But as far as the cell phone area goes, our practice right now at the high school level is if you have your cell phone and you have it out and you're looking at it and you have it on, the teachers to ask the student, would you just place that on my desk? And at the end of the class period, the student can pick that up and go out with that. I think if we would enforce that consistently across our faculty, not picking on my faculty, because they have a lot they're doing, it would help that cell phone use issue. I really don't want a bunch of students' cell phones in my office, okay? But other places actually take that cell phone and they keep it till the you've just been obedient to what the teachers asked you to do in that case.
I just wanted to know if there was any changes to, like, the information.
No, I didn't change that, and that was a little softer than I think what had been done in years past. I think we need to realize kids have cell phones, they're gonna have them, and, but I can tell you that the faculty has come back to me and said, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem with honesty in the classroom, with, while they're taking tests and talking to each other, rendezvousing in the restrooms, you know, come meet me at this time, taking phone calls, texting each
Distraction.
other. It's playing games, going to the restroom and staying there for 20 minutes to play games and talk to each other, make calls. It's really become, from their perspective, a distraction. And from our perspective, when we're seeing these more severe things happen, like the filming of fights and so many different things, of bullying, cyberbullying, and the things that's happening through the phones, we're finding that we're appearing in court addressing a phone issue. And it's not just a phone issue, but the phone's used as a tool that's getting these kids in more trouble. And that might help that too. Phones in the restroom is a big no for us. You'll find in the handbook for obvious reasons. And, you know, sometime maybe behind closed doors, I can give you specific examples of why. If you can imagine.
Okay.
I have a couple comments. I liked how the elementary school listed the staff. I wondered if we could go a step further and do that and put emails. I know as a parent, a lot of times I'll have to go to the website and search up the teacher's name and find their email address, and if they're gonna be referring to the handbook throughout the year, then that would be a nice reference. And we don't have that at the high school, I don't think.
So, our policy is, I think it's more of a county policy, and I'm not trying to speak for Tyson here, Mr. Price, is that our live grades platform to communicate with teachers actually sends the email to the teacher through live grades. And we have several teachers that don't give out even their K12.wv.us access. And that protects the teacher from having, so many emails from different things, and junk emails and things like that. It gives them an extra layer of not privacy, but it's professionalism to communicate through the live grades platform.
Teachers don't.
I never do publish the teacher's email address unless I just have to copy them back to a parent, and usually with their permission. But through live grades is the preferred method that we pay for in Gilmer County Schools for students to communicate with teachers, parents to communicate if it's email.
You understand that the taxpayers are paying for those email addresses and they're on the website?
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying the preferred method of Gilmer County Schools for parents and students to communicate with teachers is through the platform we pay for called
So they
Live
can
Grades.
only communicate in your preferred way?
My
I don't
preferred way.
understand
It's
that.
Gilmer County Schools. Am I speaking? out
Patty,
of turn,
Patty,
Ms. Fowler?
is that a normal?
I was looking to see if they're on that,
They are, because I've gone on there to look at them and get them before.
so,
At the website?
yes.
Oh, it also says Savannah Blankenship is the band director, so I wouldn't go for incredible accuracy on that.
If that's something that, you wanna see a directory, cause I mean, you all will also have a directory, as soon as we get everything in payroll switched over, so we can get your K-12 going. I mean, we can have an administrative meeting and discuss it, and, you know, be consistent with both schools.
On our app right now, that app or whatever, when you like look up a teacher, I'm looking one up right now, it gives me the option to call the teacher or email
Email.
on our app.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure.
So it's not secret.
The email itself doesn't come up, like, it just gives you the option. I mean, let me just check.
Well, but I've gone on the website before to find the teacher's email address.
I'm just seeing if it'll pop up, like, when I hit it, it'll pop up the email address. So it's just not going to know. Joe, can you hit it?
I'm trying, I have no email, Lord Chapman.
It does.
Okay.
It does. But of course, my email and everything is connected to my phone. That's just for me. I
I would think we would want to encourage parent interaction with teachers.
We'll just make it a topic at our next administrative meeting, so it'll be consistent across.
Does
Well,
the,
central office, sorry.
does the high school have a PTO?
Not that I'm aware.
Is that,
They typically don't, they have more like the band booster, type of activities at the high school instead of a parent-teacher organization.
Do they have an athletic booster?
Athletic boosters, yes, band and athletic. I don't remember last time a high school had a parent-teacher organization,
LSIC.
just other than LSIC, yeah.
and that was another thing, I noticed that Mr. Price listed it in his handbook. It would be nice to have that in the high school handbook as well, the meetings and the composition of the LSIC.
I can do that. But
Okay, Patty, you're gonna have an admin meeting and decide about those emails, right? Okay,
We always have like a debriefing, so yes.
and you'll let us know that next board meeting.
And the appeals procedures for citizens, I noticed that is in the elementary book and it is not in the high school book.
Is it the actual form?
It is not the actual form, it details the procedure. I also had a question on page 36. The length of skirts, dresses, or shorts must be at the mid-thigh, which is half the distance from the waist to the knee. Apparently, we took approximately 40 girls out of class and had their shorts measured. Is that something that everyone finds acceptable?
Page 36, did you do?
Yeah, it's page 36 and the last number 7.
I believe that's been the language in that handbook for numerous years.
Is there another way to do it? Any suggestions? I'll entertain them.
So what's the question?
The measurement of the,
There is no, I mean, that's,
They,
they used to be fingertip length, but everybody's arms are a different length, so I think that's why they said between the hip and the mid-thigh.
they measured them. They took 40 girls out of their classwork to measure their shorts, and they had to show where their hip bone was so they could measure from their hip bone to their knee to determine if it was mid-thigh. I'm personally, as a parent, not comfortable with that, so if we can come up with an alternative.
As a short person, everything's long on me, so I mean, you know, as a tall person, I mean. it's
Mr.
hard.
Putnam, what's your opinion about that?
I've never measured a female student or male student for clothing. I've never.
Do you have, does somebody in your school do it?
We have referrals made by our faculty or by staff, and we have a female counselor, a female office worker, or somebody in that capacity that has deemed, some of them have said, you're fine, go back to class. I have no knowledge of 40 kids coming down there on a single day, a single week, no knowledge of that at all, that that's ever happened, but I could be in the dark on that, perhaps.
Well, you have the policy in your handbook, right?
Yes, and I think there
Mid-thigh.
needs to be some
Okay, and-
measurement of what is appropriate.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll become very inappropriate very quickly.
I'm not questioning that, I'm questioning how do you address it? Let's say somebody comes up and a teacher sees it and they think it's inappropriate. Should there not be a committee of 3 or 4 people that would take that student in and say, look, you're not dressed appropriately? And that would, if one person does it, it's a little more liability than if you have a group that brings that kid in and says, look, these things are just not appropriate. We need to change it.
How about a counselor and an administrator? Would that be sufficient?
I would think, and, or even another teacher, 2 or 3 people make the decision.
Well,
rather than-
teachers are in class, you know,
Yeah.
they're probably sending that person during class time.
Yeah, but most every period, you got a teacher or 2 in planning, right?
So the teacher, well, what I'm saying is the teacher has already determined it's inappropriate, or they wouldn't have questioned.
I don't think he's talking about the teacher that sent them,
No.
just a third party, a teacher that's on break a teacher that's on planning right now. Could a female teacher be available to
Yeah,
come
if
in?
Mrs.
Is that what you're
Jones
saying,
sent,
Tom?
if Mrs. Jones sent somebody out of class, and Mrs. Smith's on break, and Mr. Whoever is the administrator, they could get together and they could, they were referred by this person, and these 2 people agreed. If all 3 of them agreed, I don't think that there would be much way anybody could argue with that.
Patty, are you aware of what any other schools do, or?
No, not, I mean, you know, I think it's just different. I can find out, like Calhoun and.
Well, I'm not advocating getting rid of all standards, but I don't think it's appropriate to
I
measure.
think maybe the language, like, have something about distracting or something else.
I see, what I see from it's the liability. I think the more people you have that does this, takes the liability out of it.
Yeah, or we can just suspend them until their parents are able to measure it, if we're so uncomfortable. I mean, are we trying to keep them in school?
I don't know
That's what
about
we're trying to keep
that.
them in school, right?
I don't know how to wear shorts up there anyway, it's freezing in there.
Yeah,
They're kids.
Well, yes.
but no, I agree. We could just ban
You know-
shorts,
Yeah, a lot of these kids know styles too, and like everything you're talking about is a style.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So maybe if we say, no, I don't know what you call them, but elastic shorts or whatever, like volleyball shorts. I'm thinking girls, because I think that's where we're all out here. But girls can't be wearing volleyball shorts into the classroom or something like that. Maybe you can do that.
They
I
have to
don't know.
wear them at the
But
game.
I think that's the way it's been for.
So what you're saying,
55
Mr. Putman,
years.
if you have a teacher that sends you that, you take that teacher's word for it, and then the administrator's word, and that's it, right?
I think a counselor, I have.
A counselor?
I have no female administrators on staff. I'm not gonna judge a girl's clothing inappropriate by myself without a female's presence.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You have a principal, another teacher, and the person that referred them. And then, if they agree that that's inappropriate, I think you're standing in a very strong position. Rather than if you just do it yourself, you're putting a lot of liability on you or that other person that's doing it.
And I would also add that, gentlemen get sent to the office for
Yeah.
that violation, so instead of the female counselor, then
Yeah,
it's
these
the
days.
male
Yeah,
counselor
back.
that, you know.
Late 80s, baby.
yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Do-
So the question, Dr. Miller's question is about how do you determine what's inappropriate?
Yes.
So if you just say inappropriate or distracting, what's distracting to you might be different than what's distracting to Mrs. Chapman. So there has to be something that is objective. It can't be a subjective term. If you say, put your hands at your sides and your fingertips touch the end of your shorts, you're good, I'm good with that. If you say half the distance from the knee to the waist, and that's mid-thigh, and that's where it's at, I'm good with that. I mean, you tell me what you think's appropriate, and I don't mind I don't think our faculty would push against editing what the measurement is. I just think you need something that is objective, because if you just say it's distracting to me, but it's not distracting to you, then you have this language, well, my teacher who's a male is
Yeah.
looking at me inappropriately, and he shouldn't be distracting because I'm a kid and he's an adult. And you get into that kind of back and forth.
And also, if you do the arm things, you get, some kids have long arms, they can wear longer shorts than other kids. I think what you do, you get 2 or 3 people to make the decision, and they can't say that you are looking at this from a personal standpoint of view. That's my opinion.
And you make it subjective to those people that make that determination. So
Yeah.
if the teacher sends them down, and myself and a female counselor who's in the office says, yeah, that's not good, then we don't measure anything. We just say it's not good, you need to change.
Well, you can measure, you can have the statement you said, measure. But if you measure by fingertips, that's not any different than using a ruler, in my opinion, because everybody's arms are not the same length.
Can we
I don't,
inquire and find out what 4 or 5 other schools do? I mean, because I agree there has to be something, you know, objective, but I don't know what that is. You know, I would like to see what other schools do and see what other dress codes are.
Mr. Putnam, you and I wanna make some phone calls to some surrounding to see if they're verbiage.
Certainly. I would like to have the liberty, if I'm allowed that, to be able to print handbooks before the opening of school or shortly thereafter. And I've waited till this board meeting, know that it's on your board agenda, not changing what the board has approved before, about as long as I can with Glenville State College to print. Things like putting the contacts for teachers' emails, I can do that. Times of LSIC meetings, no problem. Appeals for citizens in that language, no problem. If we're gonna change protocol for discipline, and you want to do an investigation, more discussion, and let's hold back, I'm not gonna have handbooks available for the beginning of the school year. That's okay, that's what the board desires, I'm okay with
Well, I think there's no need to have discussion on this if we can't change things.
the only reason that I don't have a problem with this at all, but I think that you'll have a problem with this if it comes out and somebody sent to the office and that parent decides that you made a biased decision about her child or his child, either one. I mean, but I think if you say, well, I did this, Mrs. Jones thinks that this is inappropriate, Mrs. Smith thinks it's inappropriate, it's inappropriate.
That's how, then can we go ahead and make a motion then, or can I make the motion, or I'll make the motion to go ahead and pass both these handbooks for print then, if that's what needs to be done?
As is.
As is now, I mean, just because, and then we can talk about reforming, that'd be, I mean, I know it's not policy, but handbook, you know, we can talk about the handbook and but this is the first time I've looked at either of these, is when I came in here today, so. I mean,
And
the
I
judgment
agree,
know.
I agree with Mr. Putnam's point, but again, as a new board member, I didn't get this information really in time to thoroughly review or ask or check, you know, to give you questions or concerns that I had before you go to print. So I mean, I understand that talk, but I'm almost like we should have had this way before now as well to review, is my thing.
I had some other questions.
Go ahead, ask them.
The other is the bathroom usage. I've gotten a lot of complaints from parents, even a senior who'd never been in trouble that got detention for using the bathroom too much.
Page you want, Hillary?
The next page, 37. How long do kids have in between classes?
about 3 minutes.
So 3 minutes. So they get a bathroom pass and it's considered excessive usage if they use it more than 3 times per semester per class. Correct? Am I saying that right?
Actually, that is an edit that was sent. I don't know if you received that edit. They get 3 times per 9 weeks per class. So
3
that's
times per 9
24
weeks.
times in 9 weeks.
So
You
that's
leave the
better.
classroom to go to the restroom and sign out. And you don't
So
receive detention under any circumstance for going to the restroom, asking to go to the restroom. You do not get detention for that.
I had a
unless you
parent tell me
yourself
that,
out
so.
the restroom, which you might.
So that makes it better if it's 9 weeks.
It is, and so here's what happened, you say, well, what happens at the 4th time? Okay, so there has to be something, and again, the big issue is they go to the restroom with their cell phone and they don't come back for 15 minutes, okay? And a teacher can call the office and say, hey, I'm missing Jim, can you go look for him? And we go and find Jim, and Jim, you know, may be doing what he's supposed to, or maybe not. And we do that, okay? But here's what happens after the 4th.
he's breaking the rules, he's not just going to the bathroom.
That's hard to determine, that's all.
Well,
And it's really hard for a teacher that's working in the classroom to determine. And there's no cameras, of course. So what we put in place, and we did this with the help of our faculty, is we have assigned workroom to make up the amount of time that you missed in the classroom. So you go to workroom, it's not detention, it's not put in the system as a disciplinary referral. We have a spreadsheet, I tell Mrs. Jones, Jim is gonna be coming to workroom today. He's on his 5th bathroom pass out of first period math. And he's gonna make up the time that he's gone to the restroom instead of being in math class. And he goes to workroom for a day. And that's all that is, and it's not, but it is something that instead of, what'll happen is they'll play basketball all the way through lunch period, and then the next period, they gotta go to the restroom, they had all that time, they didn't do it. And they'll miss that class 4 times, 5 times, to go to the restroom, 6, 7 minutes at a time. And they are asked to recoup that time, that 30 minutes after they've eaten their lunch, to go to workroom and study on that class, take that work with them from that particular class to workroom. Now, that might not be the best system, but it is something to keep them from abusing their time. We also looked with the school leadership team about expanding from 3 minutes to 4 minutes and what that would do to the master schedule. We worked 3 different master schedules that would expand the time. We also looked at 3-minute breaks and then having, after second period, having a 7-minute bathroom break. And in none of those scenarios where we worked the time, were we able to make the schedule feasible to the amount of bank time that we need for professional learning days and for other things that happen in the school, and have a 45-minute class period. But we were still willing to try to do that, even though that would change every single IEP in the entire school. They would all have to be amended. Our superintendent was still on board with us, if that's what our school leadership team really wanted to do. Changing the time of when the vocational, the Career Center kids would have more time in the morning than they would in the evening. Classes would be different. The same 9th grade history class would have 45 minutes, while another one might have 42. It changes lunch times. We looked at a lot of scenarios. I found 3 schedules that would work. And the schedule that we have right now, the 3-minute break in between classes, is the one the school leadership team has reviewed and selected.
How many minutes do you have in between classes too?
3.
Oh, just in between
Every class
classes?
is 45 minutes.
And then bam,
So
you got.
whether you have history in the morning or that same section of history in the afternoon for a teacher, they can pace those 2 classes on the same lesson plan and on the same curriculum materials. And you have the same amount of time for Career Center kids in the morning as you do in the afternoon. And that took a lot of math, it's not what we had before. It took some math to make that work. But we also accumulate the bank time that we have professional learning days as well, from the amount of time that we're spending in class. That's a couple minutes above what the state requires.
my next question is on page 50, graduation attire. The second paragraph down, of course, we had issues with 4-H, the Armed Forces, Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts wanting to wear graduation, I don't know what they were, stoles or cords or something. And I think we ended up making it fit this by having them come and give it out at school. But I think we should amend this policy to include the Armed Forces, 4-H, Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts.
I'd like to make a motion to have them printed as they are.
I'm gonna second that and say though, because it just needs to be done, so these kids have a handbook. But, any changes, we continue, we have this, we get them printed to the copy, and we can continue to make changes that, and work with Mr. Putton and make those changes that we think reflects the communities and the kids in the schools wishing.
I agree.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to print them. Is there any more discussion? I just want to say that I had a lot of discussion from veterans in the community about graduation and not being recognized. And that's still not in there.
I'm not trying to belittle any, like, the issues you guys are bringing up. I'm just saying that, you know, to do this in one meeting, this is almost a session of saying, you know, a session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Special
agree.
meeting just to go through these, but to sit
But
here and do it,
It's on the agenda.
yeah, well, I
I mean,
understand.
that was the purpose of having this, was it not?
What's the deadline, Mr. Putnam, that you have to have for printing at the college? When do you have to turn it in to have it
That
printed?
happened by school time.
Yeah,
They recommended last Friday.
so we're already behind.
And it's only gonna get worse.
I've held, and I can continue to hold. I mean, we can put one up that is digital, and then we can give them a hard copy in October. And we can do that, if that's the desire of the board, if that's what you wanna do.
In October, you're darn near into the second 9 weeks, aren't you?
Might as
They
well
have a
save the
canned
money.
paper copy, I'd like to print them.
Yeah.
Well, we had this
agree.
on the agenda, and I spent several hours going through this line by line.
I'm saying the
Me
changes.
too.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I did too.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm really interested in the changes, like, that's what I'm saying, I'm not trying to, I think that they're very valid points. But,
You're wanting to make the changes after the book's printed.
yeah, I'm saying this year, you know, we're a day late and a
So
dollar short.
let's,
That's what I'm
let's,
saying, and I understand that, but if
Yeah.
I would've had this and we could all, you know, if we,
right, if your motion was approved, then Mr. Putman would print the books, and then we would have an addendum to the handbook by the
Yeah.
1st of October.
yeah,
For the
I've seen
changes.
that, I've seen it done where they put the
Yeah.
changes in, or send it to the students and make those changes as the semester, I mean, is that not
That,
I think we gotta keep the
Mr.
wheel.
Putman, what do you
That's-
think? You're
If that pleases the board, I'm 90%, 95% of this handbook, I inherited, had no table of contents.
right.
Had all kinds of grammatical errors, had a lot of stuff going on. And I'm trying to improve it.
Well,
I'm
Well, I
telling you,
agree, I
our-
mean, I think we
our
all
school-
are.
Some of the things that we're changing right here in discussion, though, I think you should also consider what the school leadership team of teachers and leaders within your school has said, what the LSIC has said, what your student council says. I don't think any one of those bodies ought to work independently without working across the aisle with the other parts.
So they did have input in doing this handbook, the LSIC and student council
Yes.
and all those,
Yes,
and the teachers.
yes.
Okay.
But we did not.
But the
Parents.
Board of Education did, but not this group right here that's newly elected.
Yeah.
But the Gilmer County Board of Education most certainly
Last
did.
year, right?
And that is the handbook primarily you're looking at now.
To me, a handbook is not a once and done, because something's going to arise during the year that's going to be addressed. There's no way that you can foresee every possibility today. So to me, the handbook, it's a living document. So I mean, it needs to be something that can be adjusted and flexible. And in the digital world, I mean, the digital copy is the correct. I mean, we're not gonna reprint them all the time, but we do have some parents that have to have the paper. Some parents don't want the paper, they want the digital. So to me, these handbooks, both the elementary and the high school handbooks, are documents that should be living and not once and done.
Well, let's keep going over it then.
And this went through a very proper vetting process. I mean, to tell you the truth, I think it's kind of a gross overreach for us to jump in. I mean, you all are the ones who have to live with it. Yeah, I had a provost years ago who was very hands-off, and his key word all the time, or his tagline was always, you all are the ones that have to live with it, you know? I went through it line by line. I just didn't see an issue. And to tell you the truth, for lack of a better term, it's a little bit insulting to turn around to that leadership group and say, hey, thank you for your help here, but we're gonna handle this. We're gonna jump in on this and make a few changes.
It's never
They're the
insulting.
ones who live with it. They're the ones who make it. They're the ones who understand the policies, and I say they should be the ones to drive it. And we should be as hands-off as we possibly can. That's just me, though.
Well, I don't think it's insulting to represent the people that elected me.
And we are responsible too. I mean, I don't want you to put that aside, because if something happens to one of those kids and a parent feels it's illegitimate, they can go to court, and it's not just you that's liable, we're liable as well, because we have to approve it. So to say we don't have any reason to question it, I don't think is exactly true. But I do think that if you had the LSIC, the professional teachers, service personnel, everybody in the school involved in making that handbook, the student group that worked on it, then I would be able to have a lot easier time accepting it and printing it, with the understanding that if something comes up, we can make an addendum to it.
What student group worked on it?
Student council. We had a meeting with Mr. Frazier, and we talked about things in the handbook, asked if they had concerns about the handbook. We opened the floor up to an open forum, asked them what they'd like to change about the school, what about the rules they'd like to change. Right, Mr. Frazier?
That is correct.
We had a pretty good meeting with them, and we liked it. We also had a student council representative that is their representative to the LSIC. They have received the handbook, copies of the handbook, asked for input on the handbook. There hasn't been a lot from LSIC after our meeting. They did give us some input at that meeting. Hasn't been a lot through the summer. I do have one person that's involved with the extension office in 4-H that asked me for a copy of the handbook. Prior to this discussion and meeting, I asked her, because she asked for a copy, did she have input? Does she have any ideas? She did. It involves the wearing of 4-H regalia at graduation. That was the only thing that she came back with, and my understanding is that she contacted you, Dr. Miller, to represent that to you as well. That's about it, past going through the protocols of the groups that have looked at it. Most certainly, the group that's looked at it the most has been our school leadership team. So that's comprised of teachers from different content areas and grade levels across our school that come together for a leadership team, meetings with administration, counselors as well. And they've looked at the book a lot, and they're the ones that have to enforce it. They're the ones that live it. They are the ones that live it.
Well, I agree with you, and I appreciate the fact that you did let all those people be involved in doing the process. And the motion's been on the floor now, and I think we've about discussed it to death. Dr. Barr made the motion, I think Brett seconded it, to go ahead and print it with the, and allow us to make addendums if we need to, if something comes up. Is that acceptable to you?
If that's the feeling of the board, absolutely.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? Say aye.
Nay.
Okay. 4 ayes and 1 nay.
Can I just say though, I am very interested in the other information that you have to like look over and to make those, but I think with the printing deadline is the only reason we're at. But I'm kind of seeing that just being new to this board and all the information given to me. Like if I ask for it, it's there, but if I don't ask, it's not granted, so.
And Brett, I think you're hitting a big point for the new board members. This is a real, has been a real issue. You
48
come
hours,
and
so.
you have all this stuff dumped on your table and you've never seen it before. So that's a problem. We need to get it in time to be able to.
But if I know to come out and pick up something, you just let me know, man, I'll race out here, do whatever.
Okay, on to legal counsel discussion, procedures. Procedures for the board to hire legal counsel. Is there a board policy for that?
There is no board policy, it's just that we have a purchase order with myself as the person on it that will approve contacting the legal team, which any director or principal that wants to make a contact with our Bowles and Rice, then we sit down, we discuss it, and prior to any conversation going to Bowles and Rice, we have a discussion in-house, and then we contact legal for their take on it.
I would like to change that as a policy for the board, I think we have spent a tremendous amount of money on legal fees. And I believe you've been a superintendent for 5 years. I don't think you should have to call Bowles and Rice to know whether the sunshine law's been broken. You've been a superintendent long enough to know that, so haven't I. We should be able to answer most of the questions we have, and it should be only on an occasional basis that we have to have legal input. But it is very important that we get that legal input for the board when we need it. So I'm going to recommend that we go ahead with procedures and let the local people ask if they think they need help. Then you can get with me and we can decide whether to hire legal counsel or not. And I'll not sign any checks that I haven't agreed to hire legal counsel on. How's that?
And I've only contacted them when I've been requested to contact them, or when we've been in legal proceedings like we have been, unfortunately, last year. I mean, I just don't call them because, I too am concerned about the amount of fees that we're spending.
Patty, on that aspect, I don't want to say that that's not exactly correct, because you were asked about the sunshine law and your response was to refer it to legal. I referred it to legal, rather than writing to the person and saying, this fails this doesn't meet the Public Meetings Act. You got legal opinion on it. And you should have been able to have told the person right at the time that was against the sunshine law. So I think we need to be more careful about who we hire, when we hire people. That's a lot of money. One call, 1 minute costs lots of money.
Can I make a statement about that real quick?
Okay.
The Board of Education, just so you all are aware, it is a government entity. It is probably the lowest rung on the governmental ladder, but we are a government entity. Like other government entities, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for everybody here, in my opinion, we should be as hands-off as we can, let the experts do their job, stay out of their way, be there to support them when they're needed. We are only a Board of Education when we are together in a meeting, okay? Apart, we have about as much power as the guy slicing meat at Schlotsky's Deli, okay? We are only a Board of Education when we are together in meetings, period. I say this because I was CC'd on an email on 7/13, July 13th, addressed to the school district attorney in Charleston. And I quote, we intend to bring it to the board for a vote at our next meeting on July 25th as to how further correspondence between the board and its legal representative will occur, as we have concerns using Ms. Lowther as the go-between. Using words like "we" indicates that the entire Board of Education was aware and in agreement with this statement. 7/13, that email I just quoted was the first I had heard of anything about that. I'm not speaking about my other 4 board members. I'm talking about me. That was the first I'd ever heard of it. Yet here I am on this email, embarrassingly enough. Therefore, this statement does not represent the views for the Board of Education for Gilmer County, but rather maybe a few or couple who discussed it on their own outside of public meetings. I do not agree with the above statement. I have had no problems communicating with the superintendent, be it by phone, email, or in person. We cannot move forward as a school system working this way. We all have to work together. We have to be honest with each other. This was incredibly embarrassing for our Board of Education, and I apologize to you, Ms. Lowther, but please understand, not all of us were aware these conversations were taking place. Thank you.
My reply to that, Dr. Barr, is there's plenty from both sides that you're not aware of, and I won't discuss it in an open meeting.
Exactly, we could all read emails.
Now, and that's the caution to the board. If you're gonna put it in an email, it's there. and somebody's gonna read it, and everybody's gonna know about it.
And if
So
you're gonna
we're gonna send
represent the
out those
board, make sure
emails.
we all know about it.
Right.
Make sure we're all in on that conversation.
And if you're an administrator and you put it out there in an email, it's known about as well. So it works both ways.
Mhm.
You gotta be careful of what you put in
Yes,
those
it does.
emails.
You do.
And using words like personal and personnel interchangeably don't work very well.
Yes, when you're referring to board members.
So, I think you got to, we've got to get past that, we've got to work as a group, we got to work with the administration, we got good people, and we need to try to support them, and I know that the high school teachers and the people there has put lots of hours into working on this handbook, and we gotta try to do the best we can with it, and hope the parents will accept it and go from there. And those are the kinds of things that happen, and when you start emailing back and forth to each other, or assuming things that you don't have the authority to assume, then you get in trouble. So I'd say to you board members, be very careful about emails and who they go out to and what's in it, because they're for a long time. So the legal counsel, if that is.
We need a motion.
I've said everything that I know to say about it. I think that we need to limit it. I think we still should have access. In other words, if Joe needs to ask a question about the project he's working on over there at the high school, we should have the freedom to do that. Just let us know about it. Does that make sense, Joe? How do you do that now? If you get.
I've been here 16 years and never called legal unless I talked to the superintendent.
So the superintendent called legal for you probably, right?
What is it?
Superintendent probably called legal for you, right?
Or I made the call. I always want the superintendent in the room if they're available.
Okay.
There have been a few times with permission, the superintendent wasn't in the room, and I make the call with the personnel director or whoever's appropriate to be a part of that phone call, but never by myself if I called the law legal.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is I want that to be handled through the board and the administration working cooperatively, because what the legal man's opinion is and what they say depends on many times how it's presented to them. So you have to be careful about that as well.
I think that's what every opinion known to man.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think you really have to have a motion, because it just says possible action, so it was a discussion that you had.
Mr. Rainey, I think you refer that to the policy committee. You mentioned that you wanted a board policy on that, and I think you let the committee work towards a board policy on
That'd be
legal
good.
procedures.
And it doesn't have to be me, you can do someone else. I mean, I was just doing that, but that's a good idea, Cody. We'll let the policy committee develop a policy on legal counsel and who contacts them and the process. Is that okay?
Fine with me.
Will you make that into a motion?
I'll make that into a motion that I move that we let the policy, committee work on a policy to be presented at a future meeting.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Cody, you'll keep us straight on the lawyer fee. That takes care of the legal counsel. Now we need to talk about it, when we can have a work session. Board members. This will just infer,
Look for my dates here.
to board members. And I'm pretty flexible with that, so you guys at work will have to.
Can't do it August 11th, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
How about you, Brett? You're busy. What's a good day for you?
I'm at the will of the people. Just let me know and I'll let you know if I'm good or not. I don't have very many things marked on my calendar.
How about you, Jason?
I'm pretty wide open. Are we looking to do this? How soon?
How soon do you want to do it? Next couple of weeks?
So this would be to set, like, the board goals? Is that
Yeah,
what we're
this will
doing?
be goal setting, and when you come to this meeting, I'd like for each member to have 2 goals that they want this board to accomplish. And then we'll try to get together and develop, out of all the goals we bring, solidify into 2 or 3 goals, and then have one academic achievement goal that you want this board to accomplish.
Can I make a recommendation that you do it closer toward the end of August for the new people to have time to review the testing policies and all your policy handbooks, so,
Okay.
you can familiarize yourself,
August.
like toward the end, we have a meeting on the 8th and the 22nd,
The 8th,
and the 22nd are regular meetings.
do you want to have a work session following one of those meetings, or is that too long a time for you guys?
Is it gonna follow this meeting? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Earn your money, Jason.
I'm good with either one of those, actually. 22nd would probably be better. It's a little bit later. Would that be enough, Ms. Lowther, to give you guys some time to read through?
Give you guys a chance to read through more of the
I'm okay with that if
August
everybody
the
else is.
22nd, following regular meeting.
22nd.
Yep, following the meeting.
Now, this will have to be posted as a part of the regular meeting, won't it? Or we have to
Work
close the
session.
regular meeting and have
Yeah.
another?
We'll just call it work session.
We'll have to have 2 meetings.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll need to post it and put the agenda down for the working session, and that will be following the regular meeting, whatever that time that is. And we need to, it's gonna be a goal-setting meeting. That's the purpose, really, to set the goals, as far as I'm concerned. We need,
It's a separate agenda. Is that all that you want on that agenda? Just goal setting.
goal setting. This is to set the goals, and then we'll have to revisit again in the fall to see where we're at with reaching those goals, and then again in the spring, and make sure that we follow through on getting those things done.
And the benchmark.
And I don't think we need any more than 2 or 3 goals, because if you get too much, you don't concentrate on getting anything done. So
Right.
we'll have to try to decide on what we think is most important, and one of those goals has to be academics. And it's really important at the board meetings that we discuss the academics of the school system, because that's what the State Department is looking at down there when they watch the film. Are you discussing academics? So that's important. So at that meeting, at the August, that last meeting in August, following that meeting, we'll have the
I assume
goal
before
setting.
that, we can have proficiency data with all of.
Still embargoed for this year. Shelley, have you been given a date? I haven't.
No, we are just still being sent emails saying that we can't share it. And I don't know, a lot of times that is looked in September,
Yes.
and at that point, there's a public, press statement that goes out. But we can't even submit that until, now the teachers can use it for planning purposes, but we cannot share it with the public until that embargo is lifted.
Well, we could set a goal, though, without having that, saying we're gonna improve by this percentage.
You
And-
can look, yeah, you can make a goal for improvement of a percentage. But you do need to know what your baseline is, because
Yeah.
if it's high, then your percentage of improvement would be a little bit smaller.
So do we need to wait?
You can use the third benchmarks from.
Because I feel like we need something to go on to make goals.
But typically, those are released in September.
So do you wanna do STAR, or is that what you wanna do? What do you wanna do? What do you wanna set your goals on?
Do you think that would be a
We will take the
close
first,
overview?
we will take the first STAR benchmark, and you will have those proficiency scores. I think it's the first 2 weeks when we come back, they'll be in August. So you would have the data for proficiency in math and reading for the whole county, except pre-K, because they do the ELRS. STAR is not appropriate for them.
You'll have the first STAR
And kinder.
benchmark, Shelley, I'm referring to your book here,
Yeah.
August 22nd, and it'll close September 2nd.
took the third 9-week stars?
You could take the third benchmark and make improvements on that, or you could use the first benchmark and base that we take this coming year, because your student population is gonna be different. Your student population is gonna be different, because the kids who have never taken STAR, in first grade, because they've been taking the ELRS, because they're not at the 775 threshold, they will then go into second grade, so, and your seniors are then leaving.
What would you recommend we do, Shelley?
I can tell you what I do personally.
Okay.
My personal goals are based off of our first benchmark, and Tracy and I worked on making sure that the correlation between the GSA and the STAR are very similar, so we had to raise the proficiency and what we deemed as proficient. So if you look at what we deem for STAR in math, it is at 65, and reading is at 55. And then we changed that so that there is a correlation between STAR and the GSA. So in my opinion, I would wait until the first benchmark, and I would look at that, and then
When is that?
It's the last 2 weeks in August.
August 22nd. That's what I just read to
When's
you.
our
August
meeting?
22nd, and it'll end
We
September 2nd.
better have it the
The
first,
22nd, August
we
22nd.
better have our meeting, the first meeting in September then, hadn't we?
They will, yes.
So then you'll have all the information.
Yes, we'll have reports generated by September 5th.
Are these state proficiencies you're talking about, Shelley?
All right, so but I don't, on this assessment,
On the STAR assessment?
there is a correlation between the benchmarks we take, a very close correlation between the benchmarks we take every, 3 times a year and our GSA. It has historically been very close since we have changed the proficiency rates when I run the reports.
I would think that that's what we'd want to
It's
look
not
at.
perfect, but when you're looking historically at the last several years, there has been percentages, single-digit percentages different.
I would like to look at that, and one other academic standard of measurement that I would like to look at personally is a national assessment that every school in the country gets, and that's the NAEP test. I want to see how we rate compared to other schools and other counties and other states. And it's done in all the schools every year.
Well, there's a problem with that. We don't always take the NAEP every year. That is not determined until later. So you can make a goal
Right.
stating that you're gonna, but we do not get those scores. Then we do not personally get those scores back. So you can make a goal, and that's fine, but then the chance of you taking the NAEP, you've got a 50-50 chance of that. Yes or no? And we will not know that until later.
And that's the 4th, 8th, and 12th graders, right?
No, it is, it's 8th grade, and actually it says in the assessment handbook, and I believe 4th.
4th and 8th, yeah.
4th and 8th. So, this past year, we only took the assessment in 8th grade, and we did not take it in 4th, but we could take it in 4th and 8th this year, or we could not take it at all.
Well, when I was doing that testing, we did 4th, 8th, and 12th grades. They did away with 12th grades evidently.
You're not promised anything with the NAEP. They will email you and say, we're gonna show up. And
Right.
we're gonna test these kids, whether you like it or not, or we're
Right.
not testing these kids.
Right.
So we have no say in the NAEP at all, as to whether we're gonna have it or not.
Right. But I see it as a very independent test that tests everybody.
It does. I just would be cautious about making a goal if we're not assessed, and then we don't receive the scores back.
Well, we can put a proxy goal. Okay, that's what I have for that.
Are you doing the work session on August 22nd, or are you gonna wait till September?
We're gonna wait till September because the data will be in 22nd.
Your first benchmark for STAR will be available, yeah. And again, that doesn't include kindergarten.
Which one?
The 12th, I'm assuming.
But you will have
12th.
some first.
12th only to make sure all the data's in, that's all.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me.
So, we don't have any old business, so personnel.
Old unfinished business, none, I don't guess. Anybody have anything? Okay, personnel.
I would like to make the recommendations separately, since we do have, with professional at least, one by one.
Okay.
Is that
Okay.
Okay,
I would recommend Laura Stump, social studies teacher at Gilmer County High School.
Motion to approve.
Second.
been moved and second to hire Laura Stump as the teacher at Gilmer County High School. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I recommend that the board ratify its prior decision on June 27th, 2022, to hire Nathan Haynes as assistant principal of Gilmer County High School.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to hire the principal at the high school, Haynes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Allison Ramazan, resignation, which is going to hurt us. Speech language pathology, effective July 2022. It was a hard decision for her, but, you know, she was doing it for family reasons. I understand, so we are looking for speech language pathology, so if you know anybody.
just one question about that as well.
Yeah.
When do you decide not to let a person out of their contract?
Is it 10 days? Help me out here, Shelley. Is it 10 days till the start of school?
Oh, that has changed
Yeah.
multiple times, and I'm not for sure when. Because
Yeah.
it was 10 days after, and then there's the rule, if you start school and realize there's a deficit, then you can move. I mean, it has changed. I am not for sure.
I just think this is something we need to be very consistent with, because if you let one out of a contract and not the other one, that's not fair. This is a very critical position. Special ed or any of those, a math teacher, all those are critical positions. When do you say you've got a signed contract, you're gonna work the rest of the year?
She has not signed her contract.
So she did not sign a
No,
contract?
she did not sign her contract.
Well, then she doesn't have a
She brought it back
contract.
in and
Yeah,
handed us her resignation letter.
right, okay, but we still need to look at that.
It's in code. I mean, it depends on what grade level as well.
Would you have approved that if she'd have signed her contract?
No, I would have asked to stay until we had replacement.
Okay. And, you know, that's what most counties are doing now, that they're holding people to their contract. I understand that. As long as we're do the same thing all the
Yes.
time, I think that's good.
Mr. President, I move to accept this recommendation of superintendent.
Second.
Been moved and second, we accept the superintendent's recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, we have no service at this time. Extracurricular, Cody, since you have a family member, do you just want to abstain?
Yeah, that's, I can do that.
Do we want to take them all together since it is extracurricular, or do you want to do it one by one?
Do them all together.
Okay. Hannah Moore, resignation, Minnie Titan head volleyball coach, effective June 27th. Timothy White resignation, auxiliary mini Titan girls auxiliary basketball effective July 1. But then Timmy White as hire as head mini Titan girls basketball coach, and Katie Lehman auxiliary varsity cheerleading coach.
Make a motion to approve all.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve all these extracurricular jobs. Is all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay. Do you have any other information?
Just one thing, is the Jewel litigation, that's going on. Currently, there's 19 districts in the state of West Virginia that has joined with Charles Webb and his attorney. And he would like to come, he is the attorney, he would like to come and address the board in August about the litigation and whether you'd be interested in joining in the litigation. Currently, the county commission is kind of the in-between, because if the county commission would get the money, it would come to the schools. So Mr. Webb would like to just remove the middleman and come directly and talk to you as a board to see if you're interested. I do have some information I will forward on to you that he's forwarded to me. Upshur County recently, Calhoun's involved, Lewis, so there's a lot of surrounding county. Currently, there's 19 districts that have joined this Jewel litigation. And if they're awarded, then
Would you explain to everybody what that is?
the Jewel is for the vaping, where the children have become addicted to the product and the substance. And what will happen is if they win, then the money will come filter down to the schools to have cessation programs or vape monitoring, whatever you want to use the money. If they're not awarded any money, then it doesn't cost the board anything. And that's what Mr. Webb would like to come to speak to the board and give you more information about that so you can make the decision if you want to join the litigation. I just need to know, let him know what day in August he'd be willing to come, if that's okay.
Like he's willing to come to a meeting, board
Yes,
meeting? Okay.
yes, and explain some further detail.
Any meeting in August will be fine.
Yeah.
You set him up,
I
Okay.
okay?
think it's a big issue too right now, baby.
And I just want to thank the directors and the principals. I mean, you know, they give you wonderful information, so they're great, so, even though we did time in.
Okay, we have board members' comments, and I've got a few things I just want to ask you guys, administrators and teachers, to bear with this board. We're new. I will assure you that we're interested in one thing more than anything else, and that's the academic achievement of the students in Gilmer County, done in the best environment that it can be in. We've had great successes with many programs in Gilmer County in the past year. All that helps morale. It helps morale of the students. It should help you with your discipline in the schools, and it's been very positive. And I don't know of a board member here that's more interested in anything than academic performances. And I think that that's what we need to concentrate on. We're all new on the board, not except for me, and the other 4 have just gotten on this year. We've got a lot to learn, to work together, and trust me, the state's doing a lot of training. I've been to 2 already, and in the last month, of what board members should do, shouldn't do, can't do, will do, and maybe not do. So they tell you everything. We have a lot of potential in Gilmer County. We got students that do really well in academics. We've got students that do really well in athletics. We've got good leaders to get them there. Mr. Cox is a good example. When you take teams like he's got and do what he's done, you have made great accomplishments. We had a basketball season that was remarkable. We had a football season that was remarkable. We just had great things happen. And now we want to make academics remarkable. And Gilmer County's sitting in a perfect place. We got the college here that no other county has right in our back pocket that was willing to help us with anything we need. And we just got to stay positive and work for the best, be able to take criticism, realize we can't always be right, and be able to make suggestions and take suggestions. And I would ask the board members to be able to do that, and don't be emailing, criticizing each other in a way that's going to tear up relationships till you can't manage anything.
Follow the law.
All the law, that's right.
That's an important thing. I have a 4-H update. This came from Jamie and Daisy. It's been a busy spring, summer for the Gilmer County WVU Extension Office. Daisy and Jamie finished the year having provided school enrichment programming in grades pre-K through 3rd. Daisy's been active in helping all youth have opportunities to get to the high tunnel at Gilmer Elementary. The spring also had 32 youth out for a soccer spin club in conjunction with GSU Soccer. In May, they hired a new secretary, Sarah Wise, who's been a major asset to the program this summer. Gilmer County 4-H Camp was back as an in-person residential experience for the first time since 2019. 62 kids enjoyed a week of camp completely free of charge following a generous donation that covered registration fees for all. The summer has also included assisting in getting the high tunnel ready for summer boost and other enrichment support with Gilmer's summer school program. Youth activities focused on folk heritage at the Folk Festival. 5 Gilmer 4-H youth attended Alpha 1 State 4-H Camp at Jackson's Mills, a beginner's beekeeping class that has 12 weekly attendees. Now the program shifts its focus to Farm Show 2022, where 36 youth, 4-H and FFA combined, will be showing livestock. Please come out on Wednesday, September 7th to check out their projects and cheer them on.
Cool. Real quick, just a couple of updates here. Let's see, Mr. Price, you all had that super cool Easter luncheon where the parents were able to come in and have an Easter lunch with their kids.
Yes.
And I thought that was such a great idea. You said that you were looking to try to do it again at Thanksgiving.
Actually, we've had a meeting with our Title I teachers last week. Actually, we planned out all of our parent involvement, big things throughout the year. I think we're gonna hit that right around Christmas.
Okay, cool. But you're gonna do it again?
We're gonna do it.
Okay. And I believe when you did it at Easter, I asked you, that was such a great thing. How much would it cost to just cover it? Because I believe the kids eat, but the parents paid. And you came back and you gave me a price, and I asked if I could go out and solicit some donations. I think we're gonna have that covered at Christmas. So the parents should be able to come in, eat with their kids, and everybody will eat.
Awesome.
And then, let's see, at the Department of Fine Arts, at the college, we've got a great big kiln in one of our art labs. For those of you who don't know what it is, a kiln is one of those ovens that gets super, super hot, like over 1,000 degrees, and you put your ceramics in it, and it makes the ceramics hard. You take them out and you glaze them, and they look shiny. We got a new kiln at the department this year, and there was just nothing wrong with the old one. The new one had newer technology, and that's really all we needed it for. So we've got this old kiln that's huge, in perfect condition, just sitting there. So we're sending it on over to the art department at Gilmer County High School. We saw an incredible showing at the Pioneer Stage over the spring of the art students' work, and which was super cool because I got to go down there and recruit locally, which I absolutely love. And we did. We got some super talented students from Gilmer County coming to Glenville to study art. But we're going to send that over to the high school. So hopefully next time you have one of those showings, we'll see some pottery, and might be kind of a cool thing to add to an already really good program. You got it.
You got anything, Cody?
Yeah, I just want to, thank Mr. Cox and the FFA students for coming to present, all of the administrators that come and make reports. Those are very helpful and let us understand, the daily workings. I quit or something. That, go on, and that's very beneficial. I think that we should always keep these meetings to be professional. That's the best showing that we can make, as a board and the school system in general. I'd like to, welcome Mr. Haynes, to the school system. And, you know, I'd like to, you know, see that you were here this evening, you know. And, other than that, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Brett, you got anything?
No, Mr. Haynes, I do appreciate you coming though and getting to put a face to the name on the paper. That's nice.
Yep, welcome.
Well, if that's all, then I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joey, the temperature in this room,
All right, Brett.
it did not.
Be in contact, okay, bud?
Yeah, I like that, yes, please.
You got it. All right, have a good evening, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hillary. Have a good evening, buddy. Good to see you, my friend.